Oh. Hi. So, hi everybody. So let me put some. Let's introduce the PyLadies Hamburg. I hope I will add also Georgie to the stream and Avare and Anne-Marie and yeah. So these are some hosts, the hosts of today, and
Hello.
Hi.
I have
Oh, we can
yeah.
see. Check this out. We have a lot of people online.
Okay, and I need to.
We have Dania saying hi. We have Shining saying hi. Stephanie saying hi.
Okay, that
And
is
Carol.
amazing. Everybody's live at this hour. Oh man. Okay.
Thank you, Carol. Okay,
Hi,
I
Carol.
my hair is in a mess. I'm going to show you just a glimpse of that.
Yeah, so Georgie just finished, well, 2 hours ago, the stream from Bangkok, and now she's hopefully going to sleep soon because she has had, I don't know when she last slept. And we are going to slowly kick it off. So I think we will start with the first talk, right?
Yeah.
I will do something. Just a second. This is, um, I'm getting a hang of this. Uh,
Executive Director. Hi, PyLadies. Hello from Chicago, Illinois, US. I am Eva, and I am the Executive Director of the Python Software Foundation, which is the nonprofit behind the Python programming language and its really awesome community members. I'm super happy to be able to contribute a short hello to your International Women's Day event. I hope you're all enjoying yourself so far. Last year was a challenge for all of us in varying ways, and I'm super proud of all of you to continue pushing through these difficult times and coming together to support one another. 2020 was quite the hurdle for the PSF financially, but we have some really exciting new initiatives coming this year. One of the things that we're doing is working with PyLadies, and we are working with the council to put in place a stronger financial support system, especially how that flows down to individual chapters. Additionally, our team is going to grow quite a bit this year so we can provide more support for the community. We have a new hire starting by the end of the month to help us spearhead fundraising. And in about a month or so, we will have a developer in residence joining the PSF to support CPython. Internally, one of the tasks that we're kind of taking on in addition to those is scoping what support would look like for packaging, especially PyPI. So we're really excited about these new initiatives. But outside of all that fun stuff, we are celebrating our 20th anniversary and Python its 30th anniversary. So it's a really exciting year. And something I want to mention to you all is PSF membership. If you are not yet a member, you should check it out. And I've included a bit.ly link here in the slide for you, which will direct you to a blog post that explains what all the membership levels are and how you can join. Being a member helps the PSF gauge interest for Python, and some levels of membership come with voting permissions, which are important because they help us shape what the PSF will look like in the future. But thank you all for your time today, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the event. I've included some fun links here, ways you can get involved outside of what I mentioned. Follow us on Twitter, and probably most importantly, a link to our newsletter. So I highly recommend you subscribe. Enjoy the rest of the event.
so for our next talk, we have
from introducing the.
Here we go.
Hi everyone, I'm Niharika, and today I'll be talking about my journey from introducing the PyLadies Chennai chapter to building the PyLadies India community. So before we get started, a little bit about me. I'm currently working as a machine learning engineer at TCS, where I focus on building solutions for the retail industry. And I'm also the organizer for the PyLadies Chennai chapter. So before we get started, this entire talk is going to be about my journey, what I've learned, and how the PyLadies community has helped me grow. And I hope hearing my journey, it inspires you to also be part of such women in tech communities. So the entire thing started back in 2018, 2019, when I was still in my final year of undergraduation. Not knowing what PyLadies is, not knowing what Pycons are. So Pycon India 2018 was my first conference, and it was truly an eye-opener. So fast forward 3 years, the span, it's about four conferences, both in India and abroad. And there's so much of learning and there is so much to give back now that I'm actually part of the community. So the talk is going to have a lot of pictures, a lot of personal anecdotes, and I really hope you can share this journey along with me. Right, so let's go back to PyCon India 2018, which was the first conference I attended. So for those of you who are not aware, PyCons are these annual Python conferences which happen all over the world. So in India, it happened in the city of Hyderabad. And as an undergrad student, it was truly an amazing experience to interact with different people, students, researchers, industry professionals. It was also the place where I actually first got introduced to the PyLadies community by none other than Carol Billing. Hearing her and hearing the other PyLadies India organizers, it was really an amazing initiative and an amazing group where women Python enthusiasts can come together. And since me and my friend were also in the same field, we were really interested to be a part of it. But there was no such chapter in Chennai from where we belong, from where we were doing our college. In getting inspired by Carol and the other women out there, we really took it upon us to get it started. Sure, there were a lot of challenges, but eventually the PyLadies Chennai chapter was launched in March 2019. So we used to have monthly meetups, and there were a lot of challenges. Since we were new to the whole community, we didn't know whom to reach out to, how should we bring people together. But with the help of the community, who were very supportive, we finally launched, and we got women from all over. We got students who were participating, we got industry professionals, we got women who were on a career break who wanted to come back and join the workforce. So it was all kinds of crowd. One of the meetups, we even invited our head of the department of the university to see how these meetups help and how we can probably collaborate on an industrial academia connect. So the PyLadies Chennai basically focuses on conducting meetups, technical talks, workshops, initiatives like Saturday shoutouts and Tech Thursdays, and you learn and collaborate on projects. So what we were a team of 2 girls, we are now a team of 10 people, all young, bright women who are Python enthusiasts who are working towards the cause of PyLadies Chennai for a community of around 200, 300 people in Chennai. So all of this, my personal learning through from all of this was, it really helped me build a lot of confidence. It helped me to get to know a lot of people in the community, interact with them, work with them, expand my network, and also work on projects which really help in making people's lives better. So I started giving talks in different conferences, understood the whole concept of call for proposal. So that really helped me professionally and personally. So the next major thing which really helped boost my journey was the PyLadies initiative at the Pycon India. Luckily for us, it happened in Chennai in 2019, and so which really brought together all the PyLadies organizers from all over the country to be a part. So what you see here is the PyLadies booth which we had for the first time in Pycon India, and it was involving a lot of quizzes and puzzles and the team, and we had a whole lot of swag specifically this year. So we also thought of launching new initiatives. So PyLadies lunch has been a tradition all over the world. So we definitely did have a PyLadies lunch, but we also came across and we wanted to initiate something called as a PyLadies speed mentoring session. This is very similar to the concept of speed dating, except that here we have mentors, women mentors who might be female entrepreneurs who might be doing very well in the industry, who are students, female students who have achieved great heights. So we brought in like 7 to 8 people from various fields, and it gave the attendees to kind of have like a one-on-one interaction with these people and get their doubts clarified, learn about new things. So this was something which was really appreciated by the community as a whole and was like a pat on our back. So PyLadies India and the PyLadies group, kind of really brought it together in this Pycon, and it also helped me expand and helped me learn new things. So this led to me giving my first international talk, traveling all the way from India to Canada, and talk about my undergraduate. It was my undergraduate project research about understanding autistic children. This was really, really helpful because I was able to connect with the global community. It was my solo trip, so I definitely learned a lot. It was challenging. But in the end, it was amazing to interact with the Canadian community and to learn about how meetups happen, how conferences happen, work with them, volunteer along with them. So it definitely, I did get a lot of learning, which I hope to bring it back and implement it in Chennai and the PyLadies India community, right? But that also, luckily, was my last physical conference. And then, as we all know, the pandemic hit the world and everything closed. But for meetups and for communities, I think we were very quick enough to convert to an online format. So this virtual conference setup kind of brought into a very was a very good opportunity for the PyLadies India concept to actually formally be made. So this was the time when all PyLadies India organizers actually came together, and we launched our PyLadies India in June 2020, where we had chapters from Bengaluru, Bhubaneswar, Chennai, Delhi, Hyderabad, Mumbai, Pune, all of them coming together to conduct the first PyLadies India meetup. And thanks to Marietta, who was our keynote speaker and who gave a hands-on session, it was really for the community it was out there that the PyLadies India has now been established, and we look forward to conducting more such meetups and introducing new chapters and kind of following the way PyLadies Brazil has been doing really, really well. Come up with our own PyLadies India conference and really work towards increasing diversity in India. So now that the PyLadies India was established in Pycon India 2020, which happened online because of the pandemic, we, with the help and the support of all the organizers, and we really introduced for the first time an entire diversity track. So this track is basically you have talks where we brought in all women speakers who spoke about various things like how PhD can help you, how women are a superpower, how communities help in your growth, and how you can leverage these conferences and how you can apply for grants. So this track happened for both the days of the conference, simultaneous to all the other technical talks. So there was a lot of exposure, a lot of women who really attended all of these and appreciated, and there was and the best thing about the entire diversity track was getting mentioned by the keynote speaker Naomi in her keynote speech about the importance of diversity and inclusion, and how for the first time we actually made it happen at Pycon India 2020. So this has pretty much been, in a nutshell, the entire journey, and how PyLadies has had an impact in my life, like right from meeting my role models, getting inspired, launching the whole initiatives, working on projects which really helped in my professional career, and getting the opportunity to go out and give an international talk, and then eventually learning and taking things forward in the community. So there have been a lot of challenges. It's not easy. There has been some backlash. There has been some logistic challenges. People kind of burn out during all of this. But as a team, as a whole, we've been at it, and I think it's really great to see more and more women now being a part of the PyLadies community in India. So with that, I would just like to probably end the lightning talk saying yes, there are challenges, and if there are no challenges, then life isn't so interesting. And overcoming them gives you that confidence to surge ahead. And so please keep challenging. And with that, I would like to wish all of you a very happy International Women's Day. Thank you. Hi. Teresa, I think you're muted.
So,
Yeah. Hi.
hi. So, thank you for your talk. We have also a question from the audience, from Avare, who
Okay.
is actually here. Let me just, she can ask.
Okay. Hi.
You're muted.
Yeah, thank you so much for your talk and sharing your journey. This is quite inspiring. No matter where you are in your career or where you are in your life cycle of professional development, so it's really cool. And you mentioned something about the idea of a speed mentoring.
Right.
And this is way cool. And I would really like to know more about it and maybe, see how we can pimp the idea and, try it here in Hamburg, Germany. So can
Yeah.
you give us some advice on how you acquired your mentors?
Yeah. So the entire concept was we looked at, like, let's say 7 to 8 different fields. So the way the whole agenda and the way we looked out for mentors were, one is we looked into like women in research, women in the industry, students, let's say female students who have done very well in their, let's say, undergrad or in high school. So it was probably like, one, probably a female entrepreneur was one of the mentors. One was, let's say, a person who has gone out and given international talks, so is all aware of, how to write a winning call for proposal, how to submit that successful grant application. So we basically kind of picked up one field. So let's say we had around 7 to 8 mentors, and so the Indian community has a lot of tech people, right? A lot of women who are good, who are out there. It's picked up quite a bit. So we kind of reached out to various other women in tech communities whom we know personally, and we kind of also had like a small CFP where we asked people for recommendation if they know anybody in contact, so that we wanted somebody who can actually give advice based on their life experience, based on what they've done. So so yeah, we kind of had that and then send them a mail. So we even had the keynote speakers, right? Ines Montani, and the other keynote speaker was ASL Lilly. So they were our female keynotes, and we brought them also as one of the mentors. So I think that kind of also helped in bringing a lot more attendees to be a part of this whole session. Um, so yeah, so pretty much that's how we brought together like 7 to 8 people. So the way it works is like attendees come and they kind of keep hopping, like how they hop from one booth to another.
Yeah.
So they just, yeah, so that's how it went.
Wow, way cool. It would be interesting to see how that could happen digitally, huh?
That's a very good thing. So we kind of thought of doing that. So the diversity and inclusion track, which you saw, right, and the last part of my talk, it was kind of inspired from speed run mentoring because we went online last year. So we couldn't actually do that hopping from one session to another. So we ended up actually introducing an entire track. So
Mhm.
all good.
Wow, great. Thank you so much for your feedback. Cool.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, we do have
There's one
another
question also from Paloma.
Okay. So it
She
says,
would like
I
to
would
know.
like
Yeah, she would like to know more about the speed dating. Did participants had to prepare something in advance? How were the reactions?
Yeah. So the The participants really didn't have to, prepare anything in advance. So it was more like we kind of actually publicized it only during the conference, so that something like this is happening because we were still on the verge of finalizing the mentors and all of that. So the participants just got to know, okay, these are the kind of people and their background and what they can help you with. So anybody who's interested in kind of getting into open source went and spoke to an open source mentor who was right there, right? So somebody who has experience contributing to open source. So, and the mentors I think were pretty awesome. So I don't think they required any preparation. So the feedback was pretty good because it wasn't just for the female attendees; it was for everybody. So it was really nice because it was the first time that something like this has been introduced. So it was kind of uh, well appreciated, and we hope to have it the next year, but yeah, we moved to an online format after that. I hope that answers the question.
Thank you. We will have a later panel where Niharika is also there, so stay tuned for later. There's more surprises that are not in the schedule. And now, yeah, thank you for your talk again, and thank you, Avare, also. And now we move on to Paula, and we will try to do this switch as seamlessly and as good as well as Georgie used to do it. But yeah. So adding Paula, removing people, removing myself. You have the stage, Paula. She's going to do a live talk. And I need to add your, wait.
Hello, I hope that you can hear me, and then I'll start the presentation over here. I don't see nothing. Okay, let's go try again. Okay, hi everybody. So today I'm gonna talk about tidy data and my experience with data in general. I'm really happy to be here, surrounded by all these awesome speakers. And yeah, so the subtitle of my talk is actually, it's debatable, but I just wanted to show off like the bit that I've been doing during pandemic times. So a little bit about me. I like to bake bread, as you can guess. I studied neuroscience in my bachelor's and then computational neuroscience for my master's. And by the time when I was writing my master thesis, I also work as a data consultant in the University of Berlin. And I'm currently working as a developer and data scientist at ThoughtWorks, Germany, here in Hamburg. So you can find me in social media also over there. So as I said today, I want to talk about my experience with data, and in particular what I was doing when I was doing data consultation. So one of my tasks back then was to do analysis of satisfaction surveys of alumni of the university. So basically, the people over there wanted to know how well were the various programs preparing the students for their work life. So we had like questions of how did you like the program? Like, would you recommend it? Strongly disagree, or strongly agree? And also some parts like checkboxes that look very into what was like the syllabus, uh, uh, if the syllabus was preparing you from like the skills that you needed in your current position. So something like like that. What are the skills that you need right now? So I soon realized that because we had like very different surveys for different years or different programs, that I had to do some data wrangling. I had to do some data wrangling with these surveys. So I started kind of like trying to extract the information out of these questions, and basically I figure out that first we needed to identify the variables. I'm kind of like put these ones in columns. I also needed to record each observation per row. So for example, over here in the red case, you can you see only one observation that it's spread in like 3 columns and more than 10 rows, because this data was created basically through the questions, like from the point of view of writing questions, not from the point of view of extracting data or analyzing the data. And also another thing is that I needed like certain identifier keys for each observation. So something like that turned into an ID column. Then was the transition between your studies to your job successful? This is a Boolean. What are the general skills that you currently use in your job? This is like from the checkboxes that we saw. And was the training provided from your program in the university, particularly to this skill, a Boolean again. Then is when I realized that the more surveys that I analyzed, I ended up like, no matter how the raw data came, I ended up with a very similar structure as the one over here in green, which transmit information more meaningfully. So I did some research and I discovered tidy data. Basically, this is the quote: tidy data sets are all alike, but every messy data set is messy in its own way. So it was not a coincidence that I was ending up in a like more familiar structure that is somehow standardized. And actually people study it and write articles about this structure. So what is tidy data actually? You can think it as like a map, just like a way of represent the meaning of your data set into a standard structure. It follows 3 principles. Each variable needs to be in a column, each observation is a row, and each type of observational unit forms a table. So you can have different tables if you're observing different units. Also, for the people who like theory, this is also known as a Codd's third normal form. And there are different, there's the second and the fourth, like different various forms, but this is the one that can get us the statistics easier from our data. So up until now, it's my experience, but now I want to convince you more about this tidy data thing. So let's go and look into a use case. Say that we have a distance matrix, for example, between the distance between German cities. In kilometers, we've seen it, right? More or less, like we know this representation of a data set. The problem over here is that it's not very easy to add new observations. We somehow need to fill all either the lower a triangular matrix or the upper triangular matrix, and we also are like mirroring our number of observations, so seems that we have more than we actually do. And besides of like visualizing in a heat map, there's not that many things that we can do with this. So now let me show you this other one. Basically, the tidy version of a distance matrix. We can identify 3 variables: the start, the city of where you start, the city where you end, and the distance between these 2 cities. Over here, we can already see that this is related to a trip. And actually, that it represents observations in the row column very easily. So the The one on the right gives us information more meaningfully and more immediate, and the one on the left, it's useful, but it has certain constraints. Not only that, with the one on the right, we can do statistical operations and obtain the median, the maximum, the minimum, the mean of our variable distance. Or for example, if we want to add another variable, duration, we can also put it over there. We could also filter by certain conditions or stratify our data according to certain groups. And also we can visualize the data. Over here, you can actually see with a scatter plot of our data frame that the distance matrix is actually only one way of visualizing all our data set. So it's not all of the power. So how can we achieve this tidy data? For starters, we can write a bunch of nested for loops and conditionals and basically go through all our data set and just say, if this is a variable, then add it to the columns. If this is an observation, then add it to the row. And this is already very good. I mean, it might not be the most elegant way or the most efficient, but we are already thinking in tidy data. We already know what's a more meaningful way to represent our data. But maybe if you need to do this a lot of times or every day with different surveys, and then you need to write different for loops, at some point you would like to upskill and become a little bit fancier. And for that reason, Pandas has your back with different functions. So we don't have time to go through all of them, but if you want, I recommend you to check this a Pandas cheat sheet for data wrangling. And the most important functions or operations that we need are meld and pivot to stack and unstack columns, concat, and merge and joins that allow us to basically combine different data frames. So I hope by now that you are more or less convinced that tidy data is not only nice, but also it really makes our lives easier. And it saves us time and effort. It converts the data cleaning, which is normally regarded as the not so fun part of data and analysis. It makes it really smooth and enjoyable. And it also unlocks analysis and visualization powers that we didn't know before. So basically, with this, I hope to inspire a lot of people to just go around and become data scientists for their spare time, or just for their job even. It's great. I would just like to give a reminder over here that with great power comes great responsibility. And my ask for you is to try to do data science for social good. There are many problems right now in the world, and we need more ways of extracting information from the data that we see every day. Particularly to me, in this International Women's Day, I'm going to use the talk as an accountability and a call for action for myself, because there are very rough statistics out there, and it seems that we haven't completely understood them. Specifically, I'm talking about statistics like this related to violence against women. In my home country, 10 women are murdered each day. And I don't know what is it that we need to understand this horrible data, but just for a little bit of comparison, there are other statistics like in the UK, 13 women are murdered, but each month. So until we cannot change policies or work with NGOs and different organizations, try to understand more what's happening, visualize it, basically try to change the world so that women can stop being murdered and fulfill their dreams, I think that we should keep working. So thanks everybody for listening. I hope that you enjoyed the end of the talks too, and have a happy International Women's Day.
wait. And yeah, thank you for your talk. Really, am I on mute? No, I'm not on mute. Yeah, really inspiring, especially, yeah, I didn't know about this statistics. I had a question from before the statistics. Now I'm a bit, it's overshadowed my question. I wanted to ask you, how long did it take you to become good at making tidy data?
That's a good question. I think that is something that comes and goes, like practice. Like if the more I practice, the more comfortable I become. But sometimes I stop, like my pet projects, or like I stop working on Python and I forget a little bit, and then I come back. I worked on these for over 8 months, and I think like by the end I was feeling very comfortable, and I was like looking at data sets and saying like, oh, like you just need to do like melt here or something like that. And then now currently at my job also, like sometimes I discover different data sets, and it's kind of like, oh yeah, you could do this and that. But I would say like, yeah, like 3 months, 6 months. It varies. Like some people are very like
Thank you.
into it.
Yeah, of course. I just, yeah, because I think, well, clean data is kind of hard to get, and we are used to learning on
Definitely.
clean data, and then the reality strikes. Yeah. Okay, thank you. If anybody from the audience has any questions, now is the moment to message from Carol, and now is the moment to ask. And otherwise, we move on, I think. Thank you for coming, and yeah, so let's see what's up next. So I'm gonna disappear slowly.
Okay, I think we are recording. Excellent. Thanks everyone so much for joining us. I'm so excited to be here with, fun fact, Carol, first person I met at my first Pycon US, literally holding the door open. If that's not a metaphor for Carol as a human, I don't know what is. And Naomi, who when I helped start the PyLady Chicago chapter, I found Naomi on LinkedIn and had 801 questions, and Naomi's always been that person I can bring. You know, now it's like 1201 questions, but that's always been this great relationship I have with these two amazing PyLadies, people who are here to leave more behind than how the community was when they arrived. So thank you so much, both of you, for being here today. Quick intro, my name is Lorena Mesa. My pronouns are she and her, and I help organize PyLadies Chicago. I did a little bit of introduction to you both, but if you both wouldn't mind doing an introduction with your name, pronouns, and a bit of, your origin story with Python and PyLadies. Whomever wants to go first.
Go ahead, Carol.
Okay, thanks, Naomi. I'm Carol Willing. My pronouns are she and her. I have been involved locally with PyLadies San Diego and PyLadies Southern California, and also with the global efforts within PyLadies. My journey with Python probably started in earnest in 2013 when I met an amazing person, Shauna Gordon McKeon, who was working on outreach called Open Hatch, with people making their first contributions to open source. And the rest is sort of history, I guess. Naomi?
Yeah, Naomi Cedar, she, her. I started with Python in 2001. It was actually August 28th, I think. I know that because I was at Linux World in San Francisco and I went to a day-long seminar on this weird unknown language Python given by this guy, Guido van Rossum. And I was completely taken with it. I was at a school at the time and I rewrote our computer curriculum on the plane home to use Python, and we started teaching it within months after that. So it was love at first sight. And then over the years, I gave talks to education groups, and I did various things for PyCon's Education Summit, among other things, where I first ran into Carol Willing, and just a bunch of stuff like that. And then for 3 years, I was chair of the board of the Python Software Foundation. So that's me. PyLadies, when I transitioned in 2012, 2013, PyLadies was immediately a welcoming and safe environment for me, and I will never forget that.
I'm very happy for that, because you have given us so much. That Naomi is one of the kindest, most thoughtful, positive people I know. And I'm really glad that we have you in the Python community, because if I look back at the 5 years that you were on the Python Software Foundation board, amazing growth in so many different directions. So thank you.
Wow. Thank you so much.
Okay, so if I get like misty-eyed during this all, or just like 3 tears, I'm just gonna imagine I'm living my best telenovela life. Soap opera.
There you go.
That's perfect.
But as you can see, these 2 women are such pillars in everything they do. They bring their full selves to this work without a second question. I think too, if I ask, can y'all help me with this? It's not, no, it's great how when it's always just a great continuity of thinking about how do we move forward together and make sure we bring our collective values together and build a better space for everyone. So I thank you both so much. And I mean, also Carol, you're doing amazing things with Core Python. I don't know if you want to talk a little about that.
Sure. Core Python is the folks that create, along with the community, the Python language itself. And I've had the pleasure of the last 3 years serving on the Python Steering Council, which is a 5-member board that helps guide the direction of Python.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for that humble but brief overview of that. And I think that's one of the things that's really fascinating about Python is we have so many ways for you to continue your journey, be it you are a hobbyist, you're an educator, you're someone who's just wanting to learn a new skill set, or hey, you're using Python to take an image of a black hole, or, you know, putting a really cute rover named Perseverance on Mars. So considering that there's so much in this space and considering the breadth of your experience, I just wanted to ask you both, if we were to think about that from the perspective of PyLadies, what has PyLadies meant to you?
Well, again, I think, you know, it's been a safe and welcoming space for a lot of people who wouldn't have found it otherwise. And I think that cannot be underestimated. I think the question always arises, you know, why would you have a women-only group? Isn't that somehow putting women aside, keeping them out of the mainstream? And I think what they don't understand is just the ability to breathe and relax in a space that is not as challenging as maybe some other spaces is what really helps people get established and then go on to take on much larger challenges and things like that. It's a starting place that I think keeps us welcoming and gets more people involved in the community. I don't think that can be underestimated.
Yeah, I mean, I think personally, I think PyLadies has been such a source of encouragement, and also, you know, the safe space for me was absolutely critical. And I think, you know, that ability to be your authentic self, to ask questions without somebody saying, oh, that's not a good question to ask, as well as, you know, just the ability to share resources, to share knowledge, and watch lots of people grow together. And I think that sort of education focus, even if it's informal, is so important, because you see people coming from complete beginners to then becoming tutorial givers at Pycons around the world. And I think by having a safe space, I think what it does is it lets people grow and make mistakes and get better. And I think the whole Python community benefits from that. I know in San Diego, as PyLadies grew, so did the interactions within San Diego Python. And now in that meetup group, it's very hard to tell the difference between what's PyLadies and what's just, you know, Pythonistas doing cool things with Python.
I love that so much. I mean, there's been a lot of interesting dialogue, I think, around when it comes to open source and community, and particularly the growing rise of no matter what, technology is a part of everything we do, right? And if we don't think about how we take care of one another in these spaces, particularly as the medium of what to build community changes, you know, we're not, I think, checking in with our core values. And I think, as you both said, bringing our true authentic selves to the work and to the space and being a human in this world. So I think you both bring some really interesting touch points on that. And actually that dovetails very well with this year's International Women's Day theme, Choose to Challenge. So that's a large theme, and I'm curious how you might interpret that theme in relation to, be it the Python community or PyLadies explicitly. How does this message kind of resonate with you both?
Well, so I think one feature of the past 12 months, given what they've been, has been that there's been a rise of international meetups with people calling in from all over. And I know over the past 12 months, I think I must have done something like 20, 22, I don't know, online things where I've talked to a lot of people doing Python, a lot of women, a lot of PyLadies groups around the world. And they are all really there partly because of the challenge, both the challenge of learning something new and developing possibly a new career and moving in new directions and improving their lives. But even to be there, they're facing challenges with, you know, managing children, with trying to keep the household together, with doing lots of things that, you know, are the things that they have to do. So, you know, that's what I said earlier. It was easy to talk about this. I see in PyLadies chapters around the world, incredible women everywhere rising to the challenge and meeting it. So yeah, it's right on for me.
Yeah, I mean, for me, there's lots of ways I could go with choose to challenge. I mean, I could do the very straightforward challenge stereotypes and the status quo, but even more so, I think the challenge to listen to each other, to first seek to understand somebody's perspective, and Naomi does this exceedingly well, and then respond to the changes that are happening both in our personal lives as well as in, you know, a more global sense, such as, you know, the challenges we've had with the pandemic this year, because I think resilience and change are two things that are going to get us further in the long run.
I'm like having goosebumps listening to you both talk. And I think that this is just both of what you're speaking to, the notion of understanding where you come from, using that to inform how you do the work today to inform what is tomorrow, is a really great way for us to think about, you know, what comes next for PyLadies. If it's, you're thinking a calendar month, a calendar year, or, you know, 200 years in the future. I'm a Trekkie, so live long and prosper. So, you know, when Python's clearly doing that. What are you looking forward to next for PyLadies as a community?
I mean, I think we're all looking forward to being able to meet in person again. Let's just say the obvious right away. But I also think that, I guess I'm not so sure my crystal ball is clear enough I can say specific things, but I think that we are in a position where we are facing a lot of challenges right now, but I think that if we rise to those challenges, and by we, I'm talking about PyLadies and people of goodwill everywhere, but we can actually do some real positive good, make some positive changes for the future as well. This is a moment of crisis, a moment of change. That means that there is an opportunity for us to continue to improve things. And that's what I would encourage everybody to think about in this context.
Wow, that's hard to follow up because my heart is totally with it there. I mean, we have such amazing individuals throughout the world. And I think, helping them get what they need to succeed and prosper is really, I think, one of the missions of Python in general. Python, programming languages, there's lots of them out there. And why do you use a programming language? It's to get something meaningful done. And we're exceedingly fortunate in the Python world, at least in most spaces, to have the ability to take the language, to take complete beginners and watch them soar and do really meaningful work in their communities and beyond. And I think that is, to me, is priceless.
I want to thank you both for taking time out of what I know is very busy schedules for you, because even though the world's a bit different, I know that Naomi's going to like all of the meetups. Carol, I know you're doing all the work as well, both from, you all creating space for others, helping us keep kind of our vision looking forward, but also reaching out to everyone and helping us think critically about why we do the work we do. So I want to thank you both for your time today. And if people did want to kind of continue the conversation, what would be a space they could find you all at, be it if it's PyLadies.com or whatever that may be?
For me personally, PyLadies Slack is really one of the best places. Otherwise, mentioning me on GitHub is probably also a really good place because I spend a lot of my time with code and in that space.
Yeah, certainly. I'm on the PyLadies Slack as well. That's a perfect place.
Excellent. Thank you so much. You all have a great rest of your weekend. And everyone, thank you so much for tuning in for this fantastic conversation. We hope to catch you in PyLady Slack is where everyone said we'll be. Thank you.
Okay.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye. My pleasure.
You.
Wow, okay. That was amazing. And just a second. Just 1 second. Avara, you had wait, there's some comments. I was just thinking that, I think we have some PyLadies Hamburgs here, and I can add you all to the stream. And there's Carol. Hi. I was just thinking that, I think we have some PyLadies Hamburgs here, and I can add you all to the stream. And there's Carol. Hi. I was just thinking that, I think we have some PyLadies Hamburgs here, and I can add you all to the stream. And there's Carol. I have an echo that I have to deal with. Please continue without me. Some PyLadies Hamburg here, and I can add you all to the stream. And there's Carol.
Okay, I think Theresa is sorting out some stuff over there.
Yeah.
I'm feeling very welcomed now.
Okay, Theresa, I think someone's mic might be, someone's actually playing this live broadcast somewhere. One of you, maybe.
Okay, I think it's resolved.
Cool.
Let's make sure I don't have something running. Slack is gone.
Yeah,
YouTube
it
gone.
should be the live broadcast. Here you go.
Yeah.
Everyone's okay.
that
Teresa,
better?
you have to be back.
I'm back. Where am I? Wait.
Okay.
I'm back. Whew. That was
Interesting.
insane.
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. I was like, how is this even like possible?
Yeah.
It's recursion.
Yeah.
Big time.
Python is good for that, right? So
Video recursion.
yeah, thank you, Carol, for joining. You were almost asleep, right?
It's morning for me, and I was in my PJs, so I took the world's quickest shower. No, I was getting up.
Yeah, cool. So that's good. So it's best way to wake up with a conference, I guess. Alvaro has a question. I will just put it here. So okay, we are all PyLadies Hamburg. So welcome to Hamburg. That's the most all of a sudden meeting of the PyLadies Hamburg that you could have ever had in your life. So there you go. So yeah.
Yeah. So hi, Carol. I'm Alvaro. Originally, actually, American, native New Yorker, but I've been in Germany for so long. Yeah, that I guess it's about time I changed the citizenship. And yeah, so I'm here to stay. But I was just really so inspired by your commitment and your drive and contribution to the community. It's just always inspiring me, and it never gets old.
Oh, that's so sweet. I think really it's all of you that inspire me. I mean, I can remember being the little girl that was the only one in class that was interested in this stuff or engineering school. And I just was completely touched to have a community around me that encourages each other, and is a multiplier effect in the world, because the work you're doing is going to really impact the next generation. And even people 2 years from now will be learning from this, and thanks to the great work and talks that you're doing. So it's really humbling. I have like goosebumps, and
Yeah, me too. I was and while you were speaking, the thought just occurred to me, wow, could you imagine if we had like a Python Ladies International conference where we could all come together really physically for like 3 days in some huge location and just like do it up? I mean, this would just be mind-blowing. What do you think about that?
We've
Is that
talked about
ever?
that, and it will happen. I don't know when with all the COVID stuff, but just with the force of women we have around the world, and supporters as well, I'm hoping it happens sooner versus later, but it will happen.
Cool. Well, reach out to Hamburg. We will definitely be in.
Next time I'm over in Europe, I will.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
I'm going to let you get back to the regularly scheduled program, though. But thank you for having me here, and for doing all the things that you do. And keep being awesome. Keep taking care of yourselves, too.
Well done.
Thank you for joining.
Bye.
And yeah, we stay in touch on YouTube. And I think, so maybe I'm getting better at this switching. Let me see. We have next, let's see. Wait, I do this. Oh, that's so cool. But that's,
Thank you very much for the opportunity to present. My name is Nicoletta Glinazzi, and today I'm going to be talking to you about game theory and the actual library. A few things about myself. I am a postdoc researcher at the Max Planck Institute for Evolutionary Biology, and I am part of the group Dynamics of Social Behavior. Myself and my group are interested in studying human interactions. We translate them into games, and then we try to understand why people behave the way that they do, and more specifically, why people cooperate, why people are nice to each other. My research heavily relies on software. I am a research software developer, and the main programming language that I use is Python. I have attended several conferences and volunteered at several Python conferences. One of my biggest contribution is co-organizing Django Girls UK for 3 years in a row, and the workshop was part of Pycon UK. But like I said, my research interest is in game theory, and this is where the Axolotl project comes in. It's a tool that allows us to simulate one specific game, which is called the Prisoner's Dilemma, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the game in a second. I've been using the project for 5 years now. I had my first contribution 5 years ago, and last year I became a core developer. So what is the Prisoner's Dilemma? Well, the Prisoner's Dilemma is a game that describes a situation we're all very familiar with, and that is the situation of meeting someone on the street and deciding whether we're going to be nice to them or not. This is a mathematical representation, and let me walk you through it. There are two players. There is the role player and the column player. I am the role player, you are the column player, and we both have two decisions, two actions, and that is to either be nice to each other or to not be nice to each other, to cooperate or to defect, and you yourself have the same list of actions, to cooperate and to defect. Now, every time our actions meet, there is an outcome. So, for example, when we both cooperate, we receive a positive number of 3. Now, over here where we are cooperating, you can see that I have a reason to change my decision and to defect, because I can get a 5 instead of a 3, and 5 is a greater number. So I'm going to go ahead and defect, but that is true also for yourself. If we're here and you're getting a 3, then you're going to change and you're going to defect and get a 5, and we're going to end up at the point where we both defect and we get a positive number of 1. Now 1 is way smaller than 3, and this is where we started from, and this is exactly what this game describes a situation of a dilemma. We both choose what we think is the best for ourselves, but we end up in a not sufficient outcome. So what the Prisoner's Dilemma tells us is that if you just play once, then you should defect. That is the right decision. But what we see in the world around us is we don't see people going around punching each other in the face. We're seeing people being nice to each other. So where does this behavior comes from? There are several ways that we can explain this behavior. One of them is repetition. What happens if we play the Prisoner's Dilemma more than once? What happens if we play the Prisoner's Dilemma tomorrow and then again tomorrow? Then now maybe I have a reason to be nice to you, hoping that you'll be nice to me tomorrow. And because of repetition, we can come to a point where both of us are cooperating. This is called the iterated Prisoner's Dilemma, and is actually very heavily studied in research and is the centerpiece when we talk about human cooperation. And this is exactly the type of situations that the Axolotl project allows us to simulate. So I'm going to go ahead and go here, and this is just a Jupyter notebook, a beautiful interface that will allow me to run some code. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to import the package. And what I want to do is create a match where two players are going to play a match of the iterated Prisoner's Dilemma. There's going to be one player that's very simple, just going to cooperate in every turn, and another player that very simply is going to defect at every turn. And how many turns we won? We just won 5 for now. I'm going to go ahead and play the match, and what we can see is that yes, we're getting C's, which stand for cooperation from the cooperator, and D's, which stands for defection for defector. We can get the scores at each turn, 0 and 5, and we can also get the final score that each strategy achieved, which is 0 and 25. These are very simple strategies, behaviors. There are more complex ones. One very famous one is tit for tat, where tit for tat starts by cooperating and then just copies the previous move made by the opponent. So what we see now is both players are going to cooperate forever, and that gives them a final score of 15. This is a match where two players play against each other, but we can also create what's called a tournament, where a list of players play all against each other, and then we get the winner. So I'm going to go ahead and going to type some strategies that just popped into my head right now, just to show you that there are several behaviors implemented within the package. There are actually more than 200 behaviors, strategies implemented within the package. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to create a tournament with my players. Each match is going to last for 200 turns, and we're going to repeat the entire tournament 5 times. I'm going to go and get ahead and get my results. Nice. And now what I can see is who is the winner of the tournament. Well, the winner of the tournament is the strategy called Grudger. We can even visualize the results. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pop some code here. We can see we can get a visualization. Grudger is first, followed by tit for tat. The last one is alternator. But you're seeing here is we're not seeing any variation, and that is because in the 5 times that we repeated the tournament, nothing changed because the strategies always behave in the same way. But we can actually include a more random stochastic strategy. So random just cooperates and defects randomly. And what we're going to see is what this creates is some kind of variation in the results. So now the average score for graduate is 3.5, but sometimes graduate gets 3.6, etc., etc., in the 5 repetitions. These are only 2 of the capabilities of the project. Actually, what I went through today can be found on the online documentation of the project under tutorials. I just went through creating matches, running a simple tournament, and you can see that there are several ways that we can do. Another thing that might be of interest is contributing. There you can find guidelines, how to run tests, and there's a whole section on contributing a strategy. And actually, I think when contributing to this project, this is the funnest way that you can do it. But the actual structure of the library looks like, is a bit like this. Very simplified, of course. It's very modularized, and I think there are 2 advantages to being so modularized. Number 1, everything is being tested. We actually have a 100% coverage of our tests, and everything is easier to be documented. So there is documentation within each part of the code, doc strings within classes and functions, and there's also an online documentation that I just showed you, and that you can find a lot of information. Why it's great to have tests and documentation? Well, it's great for several reasons, and one of them is that it really makes it easier for people to contribute to your project. We have a long list of contributors. We actually have 69 different contributors to the project, some of them being researchers like myself, but others being students, high school students, people from industry, and other people really don't know what they did, but they were actually first-time contributors to open source. I think the main reason why we have had so many contributions is because we have a very friendly environment, and I'm not claiming I had anything to do with it. I think Vince Knight, Meatballs, and Mac Harper, the first core developers, have everything to do with this. Created a really friendly environment, and this is actually one of the comments from one of our contributors back in 2017, and she said, I really wanted to thank you all. I discovered your project because of a course where we needed to participate in an open source project. And I had the occasion to compare the welcome me and my coworkers received here compared to other people from my class who work on different projects. I've got to say that you're awesome on that part and on the help you provide to newbies. I like your project, so I'll try to contribute, to continue to contribute now and then. And I think this is the best comment someone involved in the open source community can receive. So here you can find all the links associated with the project. So if you want to print screen something, this is the time. The project is on GitHub. There's documentation online that you can find information on how to contribute, etc., etc. And this is the list of the developers. For anyone who's new to open source out there and is looking to find a project to contribute, I know it's hard, it can be scary. This is a screenshot from my first contribution to the project. And as you can see, I had to open and close 2 pull requests because before opening, a good one, because I was breaking things. I wasn't breaking the test, but I was breaking other things. But the core team back then were really patient with me and really helped me. So speaking for the team of the actual project and for myself, anyone who's new and wants to try open source, we will be more than happy, and I would be more than happy to help you with your first steps. And yes, thank you very much for your time, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the event. Thank you.
Hi, Nicoletta.
Hello.
Yeah, welcome to so you're very impressive, the library. I already have here a comment from Paloma.
Thank you.
Are you are in Hamburg, right?
I'm not. I am in Lübeck, so I am 1 hour away from Hamburg. Yes, but I was looking for PyLadies to join, and Hamburg was the closest one.
Nice. Okay, there's another one. So I think, do you, is this, okay, so how long do you do, so this is not for work, right? Do you do it in your free time, or is this something you do for your main job?
It's not my main job. I started using the library mainly for my PhD thesis, and now I'm just one of the core contributors as a side thing. So yes, I wouldn't say it's my job, but I definitely do enjoy doing it very much. I enjoy contributing to open source. So
okay, cool. And okay, cool. So then I guess we will see you more often at PyLadies Hamburg.
Yes, and you would also see me in the panel in
yes, and
Hamburg.
afterwards we have in 2 talks we have a panel, and yeah. So I think thank you for the talk, and we have the next speaker. I think.
Thank you very much.
Here. Yeah, thank you. She's ready. Okay, another live talk. Okay, yeah, thank you.
Bye-bye.
Okay. Hi, Soumya. Hi,
Soumya.
welcome.
Yeah, thank
yeah.
you.
So, if you have the stage, I will remove myself. You need to share your slides, and then I enable them.
Can you see my slides?
Not yet. Wait. Let me remove myself.
I hope everybody can see my slides now. Great. Hello, everyone. My name is Soumya. I'm currently based in Berlin, though I really follow PyLadies, and I'm quite inspired to give this talk today. Yeah, I've been working as a freelance Android engineer, and I'm also the founder of CoderBee. CoderBee is a community that started as a result of lack of diversity because of women in tech, and also for minorities to give a platform for them to come and learn to code. So just to give a little brief about myself, why I started this community. I come from India, and I'm from Bengaluru mostly, which is called the IT hub of India. And growing up, I was always interested in science and mathematics, and mostly girls were excelling at these subjects. And I did not have any bias in my head about me not being able to handle this. But later, when I moved to Berlin 6 years ago, I realized that there were so few women in IT. And yeah, it was quite shocking to see that there was hardly any women, and I was the only person always going and working in all male team. So which is why I wanted to help grow women who are interested to learn to code. So I started this community. And today I want to present this talk about diversity, because we all love to have more women in the tech communities, and it's so nice to help each other, to lift each other up, and which is why I'm going to give you some tips on how to influence diversity in teams that you are in, or at workplaces, for instance. So firstly, I just want to cover a few quick points about what were probably the causes of lack of diversity. And this is mostly keeping in mind the Western culture, because I come from an Asiatic culture where most women, like 30 to 40 at least % of women are in STEM fields. So when I was doing some research, I realized that the 2 biggest causes of lack of diversity was socialization and institutional bias. So to understand socialization, we might have to go back a little back in time, especially 40s, when ENIAC machine was invented in the US. And you would see that the whole team of ENIAC machine were women. And back in 40s, programming was a woman's job, and especially mathematician, scientists. There were a lot of scientists who were in programming. And just a few years later, in the 60s and 70s, you would see that when mainstream media and ads became popular, that men were portrayed as faces of IT, or because men were more in media and ad agencies, they brought more men inside, and they actually caused this problem of lack of representation, where women started feeling like maybe this job is not for me, and there were clubs for game boys and fanboys. So this resulted as a byproduct of institutional bias. Institutional bias kind of fueled socialization, and whenever you don't see women in certain places, you would have this conditioning that women don't belong there. So kind of these ad agencies made it not normal for women to not do programming, which is why later you saw there was drastic change in the amount of women signing up for these kind of programs. And just to understand what these biases are. So we all have biases, and implicit biases are based on our backgrounds, our experiences, and where we grew up, how we grew up, and what kind of families we grew up. So biases are the stories that we make up in our heads before we even talk to somebody. We just look at people and already have this idea of whether we belong with them or not. So this is just how our brains are wired, and our brains are always thinking in binary, that us and them. So just to make sure that we don't have this kind of bias, we would have to make conscious changes in the communities to keep everyone in the loop and include people in the communities. So as a result, there was also another survey and project that was initiated to find out why people have implicit biases, and people realized that societies which had implicit biases or this kind of institutional biases showed this kind of behavior than societies where there was no conditioning involved. So why am I explaining all this to you all, and why should businesses or companies care about diversity? So firstly, companies care about making money. Companies care about having users all over the world. And software products are all about users, and users are everywhere. And we want to build global products which are accessible and useful for everyone in the world. That means building for everyone, users with diverse backgrounds, women, men, other non-binary gender, people of different age, people of different color, people of coming from diverse, having diverse topics, people with accessibility. For instance, we need workforce that represents these users and use cases that serve these people. So we need to build businesses which are inclusive. And why is diversity important? Google research says organizations with greater diversity were associated with greater profits, greater sales, greater customer base, all good things. And teams that are heterogeneous as compared to homogeneous in meaningful ways showed higher potential for growth and also innovation. So that means that people who are coming from diverse backgrounds can contribute way better and outperform people of similar backgrounds or similar gender, etc. Individuals on teams also who felt higher psychological safety also showed that they could harness the power of their ideas freely. And this, as a result, showed in their reviews, appraisals, and their executives felt they were more effective. And the sweet spot, if you're from a marginalized group, or if you're in a place where there are not many women, the sweet spot to have, just to make sure that there are enough critical mass for voices to be heard, is 30%. So if your company does not have this kind of diversity, you might have to speak up and ask for it. So just coming to the point right now, what are the basics things you can do to influence diversity around you? First of all, if you are in a position of power where you can make a informed decision about opportunities, always provide unbiased opportunities. That means that even for children, not just for people around you for children, make sure you give that platform where women, girls and boys can experiment with their ideas, build together without having these negative stereotypes in their head. So definitely avoid this kind of language and stereotyping. Challenge these status quos wherever and whenever you can. Next is when you're hiring for a particular role, always hire and bring in more diverse people and support and promote people, especially people coming from marginalized group and women, especially who don't sometimes get promoted because of gender roles. Then we need capital, right? We need investments, we need fundings, we need people investing in marginalized groups. We need people who teach and can share their expertise with marginalized groups. And least thing you could do is, if you're not interested in doing any of these, just give shout outs and show your support whenever people are asking for help or expertise, or even to share their campaigns or their word around. So just help them do that. That's the least you could do. And last but not least, just don't be silent about things that bother you, because at some point, only people who are bothered about certain stereotyping or not being able to do best to reach your potential are the people who are going to make the change. So just don't be silent and do something about it. And the next thing is, what you could do is be there for in the communities, just as for not just for representation, but we know that seeing is believing. The more number of women there are in the workforce, in the communities, the more will get attracted and will come there. Because you want a review from a woman to join some community, join from some team, and know that they feel safe. So always go for focus groups and also have role models. Encourage people to be role models by just being there, even though you don't have to be like a dedicated role model. You just have to be there to show that you support people and people can come to you. And we also need diversity in topics. So people with different varied plethora of expertise should come together and sit on a table and discuss how to grow together. And I think many people have been talking about this, but the whole point about community mindedness, how it comes together, is by creating a safe space for people in the community, in the teams, where the language normalizes. So when you have, I give this example all the time, that when you have a group of women or mixed gender groups and you use guys for them, that is definitely going to exclude a lot of people in this communities and groups. So we need to change our language to make people more inclusive. Also, when you call women girls, women are not girls. They would be if they were minors, right? So that is a bit of talking people down and not giving credit for who they are. So always convey respect and care and respect people for who they are, and show that in your language by making the change. And also, I like that when people share what pronouns they actually identify with, because that shows that you care and you also want to know how this person identifies or how you can address them. So definitely language matters. Make sure that you keep these things in mind next time when you meet people from diverse backgrounds. Allyship, my next advice on allyship is that don't be afraid to approach people from marginalized group, people of color, or aged people who are starting out new in IT or want to learn to code. Do not feel like they don't belong with you. Just show them your support. And it's really nice to have people who are experts, or even just to like have a reassurance that you can do this. When it's coming from somebody who has already done this, if you ally with them, it's nice to know that you can do this too. So I always talk about this another topic, code of conduct. Code of conduct always ensures that everybody is on the same page and people understand that there are some rules in the community. The way you behave, the way you communicate always matters. Because like I was saying, the language matters, but the rules and values also matter. So just for people to feel safe, you would have to create that environment where you reinforce these rules, which might not be obvious for everyone. So this would actually help you avoid certain hassles that might come in the way, like harassment, insults, inappropriate behaviors, which might occur if they don't know what the rules are in the community. And I always advocate for retention by mentorship. That means when you always support people who are aspirants and newbies, then definitely people in this communities always want to come back. They have fun and they want to come back and they want to learn more. This is what is the environment I'm talking about. When you go to focus communities, you always see this inclusive feeling that you're not alone and you feel safe to share. So we need those communities, and that's how we empower and lift each other and learn from each other. Nobody has to be perfect. We just have to be vulnerable and be ready, like authentic to ourselves and say, okay, I don't know. Now can someone please tell me who knows this, how to do this? So be vulnerable, and especially if it's coming from seniors and people, managers, etc. It feels more authentic and feels better, like you feel that safety very quickly. So next, another thing that I think works is that if you're appreciative, those little things, those little gestures, the power poses, the high fives, and this, when you celebrate milestones, give emojis and thumbs up. I think it always helps to show your support and use all those good stuff just to make sure that you are supported or you are supporting someone. And finally, I think this is a super important topic that if you have a sense of belonging or purpose in a group, people always come back. So also when you're creating an environment in the workplace, if you create this belonging, then people are always staying in IT. So to attract more women in IT, create that environment so they don't leave. And this is my core value. I feel like everybody can be a mentor, especially people who have just started are the best people to explain things better, and they're more relatable. And we have also seen this, that people who are experts find it hard to go back to being a beginner and understand where they're coming from. So we have this expert blind spot. So I would say at any stage, just become a mentor. You don't have to be a designated mentor. Just be there for somebody, ask them how you could help, and write good comments, give high fives, and appreciate somebody's good job. That is already great, and people feel good and supported immediately. And another thing that I always follow, and I'm trying to do as a part of CoderBee community as well, is like, tell your story. Don't just be in a corner doing your own thing. Just tell your story, come there, come to meetups, be there, and try to tell your story and inspire some people. You don't have to do this by, with an intention or anything. When you resonate with someone, you can share your story. It's the more you share your story, people find it, they can connect with you, and they can ask you for help. And last but not least, I just want to say that lack of diversity in IT is nobody's fault, but inclusivity is everybody's responsibility. So if you can do that little tiny bit, which will make a change, ask a question, choose to challenge. I think today, being Women's Day, definitely if you don't have a voice, all you can do is just ask a question, and that will always have a ripple effect, and you will see more people will join you, because just pay it forward. And the sense of that you do it together is so powerful that it would create a ripple in the whole community, hopefully. So this is just some notes, and I do provide private mentorship if someone's interested about, if you're struggling with something, I'm happy to talk to you. And some credits about how I started this, why I started talking about influencing diversity. And that's my, finally, my Twitter account. It's called Just a Bad Robot if you're interested. Thank you all so much for listening today. And I'm so happy that I got to share this time with you all. I can't hear you, Teresa.
Thank you. We had to report and ban our first internet troll. Just had to report like 4 times. Apparently, this event is still too avant-garde. And yeah, thank you for your talk. Avara is going to do the Q&A now, so I'm gonna be like quiet.
Hi, Samya. Thank you
Hello.
for your talk. Yeah,
Thank you.
this is an interesting topic for me because I'm African American and I live in Germany, so I'm not a native German. I'm I'm a different age group. I'm from a different racial group. I'm from a different gender group. So
Sure.
pick one, right? And this is pretty much consistent everywhere I go. It doesn't bother me.
I agree.
Yeah, and I find that other people are more uncomfortable than I am with the topic, but it's a bit challenging. And the question really is that, how do you show support for, diversity and marginalized groups without giving the impression that somehow you're excluding another? Like I talk to some male friends or colleagues, and they're like, "Oh, PyLadies. Well, why are you guys only were focusing on ladies, right?" Or something like this. And how do you tackle this?
So, I mean, basically, you have to explain that there is a problem first, right? There's a social issue. That's why we have focus groups. And focus groups are working really hard, doubly hard, or even way harder than others who really are privileged and don't care about these kind of things. So I always start with, we are always inclusive. So if you're happy to join us, we need more allies, right? So you can come and understand our problems. And we have focus group because someone can share something in a safe space. And sharing with everybody in public is not easy. And that is why we have focus groups. So I think I encourage people. I know that we want to get rid of this focus group once we have that, we've reached that equity and equality everywhere. So that is the whole point, that we don't want focus groups, but we have to work harder, and people should come together to help people lift each other. And focus groups are the best way to do this because of the sense of safety. People share their stories honestly.
Yeah, nice. Thank you. Yeah, that really makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. I'm looking to see if there are any other questions.
No more questions, but we will have a panel with Soumya later. So
yes.
Okay,
the day is going to be long also in Hamburg.
Yeah.
So now up for our next talk from UK. So hi, today we will be talking about the power of knowledge graphs. So let me introduce myself first. My name is Ikra, and I am a PhD student at University of Liverpool. My PhD research is about knowledge graphs and information retrieval techniques. I'm also a big advocate of open source contributions in Python, and I have contributed to organizations, open source organizations like Sugar Labs in the past. The agenda for today's presentation is that we will be covering an introduction to knowledge graphs, some examples and applications of knowledge graphs, what is the current research that is going out on the knowledge graphs, and what is the future potential in the application of knowledge graphs. So what is a knowledge graph? A knowledge graph is a collection of interlinked
description of entities. Here by entities mean real world objects and real world events or abstract concepts. So for instance, a knowledge graph is like a collection of real world objects that are linked with other real world objects in the form of a graph. So it is kind of a representation of real world objects in the form of a graph. Where are knowledge graphs used? So where are knowledge graphs being used or have been used? Knowledge graph is being used at the back end of Google search engine. Google stores information about real world objects and the descriptions and how they relate with other real world objects in the form of a knowledge graph, and the information is retrieved from that knowledge graph and by the search engine. Then Wikidata data also uses some form of a knowledge graph for storing its information. Knowledge graph, Facebook social network also take its idea from a knowledge graph. And knowledge graphs are also used in the field of biomedicine for drug repurposing and other uses as well. So let's take a small example of a knowledge graph. In this case, we can see a real world object that is the Mona Lisa. And we can also see another real world object that is a person, that is Leonardo da Vinci. So the real world object, the Mona Lisa's painting is related to Leonardo da Vinci through a relation, and the relation is was created by. So how we are storing this information? We are storing this information in the context that Mona Lisa is related to Leonardo da Vinci by the relation was created by. Yes, as another example, so there is another real world object, a person called Bob, and Bob is related to the Mona Lisa painting through the relation is interested in. So basically, Bob is a person, and Bob is interested in the Mona Lisa painting. So we can see there are multiple, in this example, entities are represented by circles and the relations between entities are represented by arrows. So real world objects are connected to each other in a knowledge graph by relations. And this is a very small example of how we can store information in a knowledge graph in the form of entities as real world objects and their relations with other real world objects. So the question arises that why do we use knowledge graphs? We are surrounded by real world objects in the form of places, events, things that we use in a daily routine, or people we come across. So we are surrounded by real world objects or real world events or real world places. So these real world objects can be considered as entities in a knowledge graph. Here we use a short form for a knowledge graph, that is KG. Real world objects are related to other real world objects, meaning entities are related to other entities in a KG, in a knowledge graph through relations. And graphs are a natural way to represent entities as real world objects and the relations with other real world objects. And these graphs, knowledge graphs, can be managed very efficiently. There are a lot of graph databases that can be used to store knowledge graphs in a very efficient manner. So the next part comes in that where are these knowledge graphs? What are the applications of these knowledge graphs? Knowledge graphs are used for knowledge sharing, for knowledge management. They are being used in information retrieval, like in search engines for semantic search. They can be used for literature, for searching for scientific literature, for various domains, for storing scientific literature, and for their management of the scientific literature as well. Then another application of knowledge graph is in the field of biomedicine, especially for drugs, for finding new treatments for different diseases, for studying the relationship between different drugs. So its application in biomedicine is also very critical. Another quite important application of knowledge graphs is in the field of finance for fraud detection. For insider trading, etc. So as an example, in this slide, we can see the Google search engine, and we have searched for WWE, that is World Wrestling Entertainment. So the information that you can see on the right side for this WWE, so the term WWE exists as an entity in Google's knowledge graph, and it is and some description about the entity is being displayed on the right hand side. So this information is being this information that you see on Google search results has been retrieved from Google's knowledge graph as well. Knowledge graph has a very big application in biomedical field. As I mentioned earlier, it is being used to store electronic medical records. It is also being used to store information and vocabulary information about medicine, drugs as well. Knowledge graphs can be used to study fraud detection in banking networks, and we can use it for things like for detecting money laundering by studying the network and how one bank account is related to another bank account, and basically study the network of different bank accounts and banks in a knowledge graph. Let's move on towards what my PhD research is about. So my PhD research about knowledge graphs is in the clinical trial search domain. My research is directed at automating the manual search process of clinical literature using the concept of knowledge graphs. So basically, we can think of it as I'm creating a search engine using knowledge graphs for clinical trial articles. So, and I am using different Python libraries for the implementation of this project. What is the future potential here? The future potential is that knowledge graphs can be used for scientific literature search engines. They can be used for DNA storage management in quantum computing, and they can also be used to study human trafficking networks. So this is the end of end of this presentation, and thank you.
Okay, so next up we have a panel. Let's see, and who else? Let's see. Afare. Hi. So you also Nicoletta, Niharika, and Paula earlier today. And you are all from different countries than Germany, at least. Or, yeah, not? Yeah. I guess one question that we have from would be, what is your motivation? So you are all, I think, engaged in either open source or diversity efforts. And I would say, what is your motivation behind it, besides the future of in 20 generations from now, it's going to be better? Who wants to start?
We're all being very polite, waiting for the other person to start. Yeah, so I'm happy to start. I never really thought about my motivations behind doing something. I guess I'm always the type of person who acts first and then kind of thinks. Why the drive? I don't know. I guess because even if we don't like to admit, sometimes we feel like there is injustice in the world. There are little things that annoy us, even if we don't always want to talk about it and make a big issue about it. So I think the reason I personally contribute and I try to educate people in both directions as much as I can is because I feel there is injustice, and by doing later actions and educating people, I feel like I can do something about it. So I wouldn't just feel bad inside me, but I would also actually try and make actions. So that's me.
So I can probably add to that. So the motivation. So I completed my bachelor's in 2019. So I'm like way early in my career, just probably 1.5 years of experience. So the whole motivation to start PyLadies was actually not to start PyLadies. It was more about starting a tech club within the university, because for Python lovers, that was the first motivation of me and my friend. Um, but eventually, we then ended up and seeing that there was no such thing in the entire city, right? Not just the university. And we were like, why don't we actually expand? And with all the with all the effort. So the main motivation was not many people are aware of such groups where you can actually. I'm not even aware of conferences the way you can leverage them. You meet people, so the whole it kind of helped me to meet a lot of mentors. So I personally had a lot of impact. So I really see that being part of communities. So that's what I even in the meetups which we plan as a community, we really wanted to be hands-on, where people learn, come up with some new open source tools or something like that, which is rather than just plain generic talk. So that's the motivation to kind of give back and um, bring people into the community who aren't aware of such opportunities.
Yeah. So from my side, I think in the motivation part, like Avri was saying, like earlier before, being like a part of a minority or like not being like the majority in the group, like it's very obvious that like you're kind of like, yeah, like some things are not like built with you in mind, or like it's kind of like, okay, this some things missing, like where's all this diversity? You cannot ignore these experiences of life, right? So a big motivation for me is this inequality, and just like realizing that it exists. And then like a lot of times I wonder like why, and like how can we make it better, and like, right. But also like as others were saying, like I think that we can, if we like technology and coding and science and like to learn things, right, like we can share this knowledge, we can learn from experiences, and we can try to make the world a little bit better.
So I have a question for the panel. So we, and with a previous speaker who spoke about influencing the diversity, that ideally we shouldn't have to have a focus group, but because of these issues or because of this imbalance, we do. And the question then is, do we go out and then say that we're going to participate in this so-called non-focused group as well as in our focus safe space? Do we take on this dual responsibility of getting our strength from the safe space, but then going out and evangelizing and standing strong to represent the other people? Is that something that makes sense, or is this just taking on some kind of challenge that is not important?
So probably I could get started with this. So yeah, um, I really think that's the end goal, right? So what you mentioned, that you are having a safe space where you are able to talk with all of these focus groups. Um, what happens is every individual. So when you have a focus group of, let's say, 10-15 people, right? Even if 2 people make it out and are confident enough to go out and participate in hackathons or competitions, or actually um, represent this community, the safe group community out there, right? It is a big motivating factor for the remaining 8 or 10 people who are still in the safe, right? So that's pretty much what happens is, every person who gains confidence, being part of communities like this, go out, perform well, work on projects, give talks, so the others automatically get motivated. You need not be like a core developer kind of a role model, but you're a role model whom they've seen that she was one among us, he or she was one of the a member of the safe group and is now so confident out there. So I think that kind of really helps people to come out and represent, and eventually I think that's the end goal, that when you are out there, you are as confident as everybody else.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, cool.
That's
I agree with that, and I think focus groups are needed because, like you said, we're not on an equal footing, and there are some people that they need the safe space in order for them, to involve and sign. But in order for something to really change, we really have to move the majority as well, and the majority needs to learn what the issues are. So by people going and presenting to these conferences, they realize, oh, but they're awesome, why they're not here? And then they realize that there is a problem. And once they realize that there's a problem, they start solving the problem, hopefully. But we definitely need the majority to be, with us as much, and or at least try to understand our issues, try and let us, elevate us and, let our voices be heard.
Yeah.
So right now, unfortunately, we need both. One day in our
Okay.
So now people, sure, they do make, like you said, they take on a big task, but unfortunately, this is the world that we're living in. But hopefully one day, things will be easier. But
Yeah.
let's see.
Yeah. Cool. Teresa?
I don't know, Paula, you wanted to say? You wanted to?
No, I agree with all of what has been said.
Yeah, I think so. We will still have at the end of the whole program, whoever is still online, Q&A, and until then we can move to the next talk. Otherwise, well, we still have a lot of talks. Okay, so let's see. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, bye.
Day PyLadies special. My talks. Hi everyone, I hope you're enjoying International Women's Day PyLadies special. My talks action, celebrate your progress with GitHub Actions. And I wanted to start with this quote from Oprah, where she says, the more you praise and celebrate your life, the more there is in life to celebrate. And I think that's very true. And this is something that I would like to get better at. And I would like to encourage and hopefully motivate you to also get better at taking time to celebrate all the small and larger successes in life. So my name is Jessica Green. I'm a back-end focused engineer at Ecosia, the search engine that plants trees. I'm a career changer. I was formerly a coffee roaster and before that a camera assistant. Here is a very old picture of me holding up the clapperboard on one of the movies I worked on. And not having a traditional path, but maybe also this is relatable for many people, I found there was a lot of bumps along the road. And something that I could have been a lot better at was just really taking time to reflect on the actual successes that I was having. Whether that was closing a PR up, finding a bug, fixing a bug, finishing a course that I had been doing, or to be honest, at the moment, getting out of bed, going to my desk and working every day. I wish I had taken more time to celebrate. And because I'm not particularly good at reminding myself to do that, I thought it'd be kind of cool if I could find an automated way. And maybe there was something existing already out there that I could use. And that's when I thought of GitHub Actions. So you may have already come across GitHub Actions. It's something they added in the last year or 2 years. It provides a way to automate your software development workflows on GitHub. And this includes a lot of those traditional continuous integration, continuous deployment tasks, such as running test suites, building applications, and publishing packages. But it also allows us to do things like automated greetings, label pull requests, or even creating cron jobs to perform scheduled tasks. So there's a lot of possibility in there. And it's a tale of two parts. So the first part we're going to look at is the workflows. These are the automated processes that run on your repository. And workflows can have many GitHub actions. After that, we're going to have a look at the actions themselves. And these can be ones that you've written, or they could be someone else's work that you can take. There's a marketplace actually that lists all of the different actions available. So let's get started. Okay, so there's a few things we need to think about here. When do we actually want to trigger the workflow? So what should be the event? Should it be any time code's pushed, or would we rather just do it when a pull request is opened? And then we need to think about the jobs that are actually going to make up this workflow. Where should those jobs run? So we need to provide them with a machine, maybe a Linux distribution virtual machine. We're going to have a list of steps, which is the tasks that each job is going to run. And within those, we're going to probably have some run commands that the step executes. This is a repository that I created especially for this talk. It's the PyLadies International Women's Day program. It's rather small Python program, which allows you to add PyLadies chapters, and then it will print out a special International Women's Day message. It was a lot of fun actually to write. And you'll see here at the root level, I've added the directory .github, and within that, the directory workflows. And that's where all the configuration for this is going to live. So let's have a look in there. Currently, we've got two files, lint.yaml and test.yaml. And although I am notoriously a dreadful speller, in this case, actually, it was intentional. I wanted to demonstrate that you can actually spell YAML with an A or without an A, and it will pick it up either way. So let's take a look at the lint. This lint workflow you'll see is going to be triggered on a push. So we have the on there. Then we have just one job in this list, which is the Python lint. It's going to run on Ubuntu latest, and it has a number of steps. A couple of steps for like checking out the code, setting up the environment. Here we're specifying that we want to use Python 3.9. And then we have some run commands for installing the dependency, which is PyCode style in this case, and then also running that linter on the code itself. Looking at the test file, pretty much the same thing, just a slightly different command that we've got going on down here. To be honest, these could have been in one file as two jobs, and I just split them out mainly to demonstrate the spelling difference. So I thought that's cool. We can lint, we can test. I'd like to do something else, something a bit more exciting. One thing I thought could be cool was to actually comment on a PR, celebrating or, celebrating that person's success when they open a pull request. Turns out I wasn't the first person to have this idea. And when I looked in the marketplace, I found quite a number of actions that allow you to comment on PRs. And I took this one from HaruPy. You can see that I have to pass through the GitHub token from my GitHub secrets, and that's to be able to have permission to comment on the PR. And I'm also passing it through this file name, which is the template.md. It's a markdown file, and I can use that to specify what the comment should be that it posts. And that file is living inside the workflow directory also. And here you are. I opened a pull request with this workflow added, and boom, the GitHub Actions bot gives me a lovely message with a nice GIF telling me to celebrate. I get to feel good for opening this PR. And I thought then the next step would be really to create my own action. So what would be something a little bit more complex that I couldn't find out the box that I wanted to do. So I decided to create this repository actions to celebrate. And that's because you need to have these three main files at the root level. So I would recommend having a repository per action. You'll see there's the action.yaml, the Docker file, and the main.py. That's going to correspond to these three main components of the action. So runs is going to configure exactly the path to the action code. The action code in this case is going to be main.py. And the application used to execute the code, which in this case is going to be Docker, which is why we need the Docker file. It can be done in JavaScript or shell script, but the nice thing about using Docker, it meant that I was able to write the actual code in Python. We're also going to need to configure any inputs that we need. These are, of course, optional, but in this case, we want to connect to Twitter. So we're going to need some of the access and secret tokens. And we can also have outputs, so data that the action is going to set and return. So here's the action.yaml, and you can see it in action. You'll see there's the name, description, and the author. We have the inputs, we have the output, we have the runs, which, as I mentioned, we're using Docker in this case. There's also the branding, so you can add an icon and a color should you want to publish to the GitHub Actions marketplace. Here's the Docker file, very small, as you can see. We build it with a slim Python image. We copy our code into it. We run pip install. I decided to do this in line, but I could have also equally done it with requirements text, but as I only use these two libraries, I thought I'd just keep it in line here. We move that across into a distroless image. And at the bottom here, you can see the command that we run runs our main.py script. So let's put it together. The idea here was I wanted to tweet my appreciation. So I wanted to have a workflow on my repository, which when someone made a pull request would use this action to send out a tweet to celebrate that person's work. So first of all, I'd set up the secrets, and that is done in the repository settings. And you can see here I'm passing through all of the different access and secret tokens that Twitter is going to require. And I went ahead and opened a pull request to add this. Once I create the pull request, you'll see down the bottom that the checks appear. It can take a second. And on the right-hand side here, you can see the details, which we can click on, and it will start to show us the workflow running in action. This is going to set it up, and it's going to run through all of the steps of our Docker file. So while it's doing that, I'd just like to take the opportunity to say a massive thanks to the organizers and to everybody watching today. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. On Twitter, it's at Sleepy Pioneer, or on GitHub. And if we check back in, and it can take a while, for example, if you are needing to pull a lot of different dependencies. So you do want to be a little bit mindful of what you're putting into this. But once it runs through, we should see that it completes the job. Yeah, there we go. And now we should be able to go over to Twitter and have a look, and there it is. So success. In this case, I decided to highlight the user who had opened the PR, which is me, and the repository that it was done to. So don't forget to celebrate. Here's a couple of links of the things that I've mentioned in this talk and also the code. I'll make these slides available to the organizers today or after the event. And I hope you have a great rest of International Women's Day. Bye.
Yeah, so for our next talk, we have Eva all the way from Uganda, Kampala. But so I'm gonna put her right on. You can reach Jessica for questions, as she said.
Oh, hi there. My name is Eva, and I'm with the Kampala PyLadies chapter, and I'm here to speak to the essence of leading on leadership, the aspect of being the female leaders that we want to see in our communities. Leadership has a lot of facets. It can be autocratic or democratic, but today I want to speak about the facet of being in a state of leadership. I mean, using the instincts that we have, the deep values, the deeply ingrained values that we have to show leadership in our workspaces, in our communities, in all the PyLadies chapters. It is about showing direction. Where do you think we should be at this moment in time, and what steps are you taking? What actions are you sort of doing to achieve this? So that is the leadership that I'm here to speak to you about. So why is this so important, you ask? I mean, it is important because we as women know what affects us most. That is why we should be the leaders in this leadership issue. We know what affects us most. We know that, I mean, we know how what women face every day in the workplace, the sexism and everything. I mean, these are very pertinent issues that we all know about, but if we do not come out to speak to them, to show direction, which direction should we be taking? I mean, it befits the whole aspect of putting ourselves in this position. We are here to make it smoother for the ladies that are going to come after us. The other reason is that we want to do this to lead on leadership because we want to show everyone how this is done. We cannot just talk to people, tell them, yeah, you're treating us bad, but not showing them how it's done. In our hiring sort of techniques and exercises, what do we do? Are we blind to all the inequalities that come with the hiring process? Do we filter out all these people that could have had this position that are capable? Do we filter them out because they didn't go to a certain, elite school? I mean, we need to think about all these things, and we need to be the people that appreciate other people. This is how you show leadership. This is why it's so important. You need to create an environment that is very, very warm, and it can create basically more leaders. So who should be, for example, the person that you show leadership to? You, first of all, the number one person is yourself. Don't forget yourself. You need to nurture yourself in a way that you can be able to give out to other people. If you cannot nurture yourself, there's nothing you can give. So be that person that is a good leader, that is ready to show direction. And you can show this to any other people around you. You can be, leadership, as I said, is a state. It can be at any time, and you're a leader in that situation. So anyone around you at that time is who you show leadership to. When are we supposed to do this? I mean, the time is now. Women's Day, this is the day about women, and we know all the inequalities in the workplace. This is the time to this is the time to be the leaders that we want to be, to show that leadership, to show, for example, our male peers that, this is how it's done. This is the time for example, in your projects at work or in your communities, do show this leadership. Give people the chance or the opportunity to make mistakes. This is how people grow. Don't be the person that is so hard on people and everything. I mean, give people a chance to grow and learn from their mistakes. This is one of the best traits of being a good leader. And how do we do this? We can do this by creating, for example, a shared purpose. A shared purpose, for example, in a community. The community, for example, can be that place where people get jobs. It can be a place where people show each other, to these opportunities, and you can show people that you can benefit from this as well as give back. So it's also important to watch your tone of voice as a leader, to watch your word choice. These are one of the important ways in which you show leadership. These are the things that people are going to sort of remember you for. I mean, it's very, very important. And the other, last but not least, the other really important thing to note is that you need to learn to take responsibility for both successful outcomes and unsuccessful outcomes. You need to show people that when we falter, we take responsibility. Yeah, I was wrong. This is how I'm going to do it to correct my ways. This is how we show leadership. I am very happy that at Kampala PyLadies, we have great leaders that give people a chance to learn, to make mistakes, and still come out unscathed on the other side. So I'm really happy about this, and the opportunity to also speak on this grand Women's Day event. So thank you very much, everyone. Bye.
Okay, that was a very inspiring talk. Eva is not with us today, but you can reach her on Twitter. You can see her Twitter link also on the website. So we move on to the next talk.
Hello, all. So I took the challenge, and my challenge to share with you is how can we improve diversity and equity inside of the business, and how can we do that inside of the open source program office, which I will refer here also as OSPOS because it's just too big to say that. For me, open source is much about the philosophy, and this is why it's a big challenge. How do you that this collaboration, this sharing inside of a company? This is where the open source program office come from, because there we can have action items and transform this philosophy into a way to live and to put ethics into life. But open source is this crazy thing. It's actually not one thing. We can think about it more as an ecosystem. And why do I say ecosystem? And just leave this one in the back. Ecosystem because it's not enough just when you put your code, you just throw it into a repository. It will not make it shareable nor an open source project. It demands a kind of a lot of efforts. And think about the life cycle. This thing has to be born, and then you need to tell people will exist in a meetup or in conference. But then it maybe gets too big, and if it gets too big, you do not have time anymore to code. But if you use open source best practice, you may help get more people on board. Open source is about this crazy polyamorph thing where you have this technical part, but you also have this huge community things and all the things around it. And this is why I say ecosystem is a kind of good word to understand that. The engagement you will need, which is also a fundamental part of every open source project, it depends on the nature of the project. And that can be a whole lot of talk about it, but it will mostly depend on how complex is your code and how complex it is to onboard to your project, and how easy you make it. It's a lot of factors there. But one thing we can say for sure is that speaking today about software industry without open source, it's impossible. The industry would break. Literally, think of a world without Python. Think of it, Python just say, I don't exist anymore. Think about how many companies would literally break. This is why it was needed. This old model of how we used to consume open source, yay, I would just use it, and there's like this one maintainer doing it all, for free. It was not possible anymore. It is a billionaire industry. And when I say billionaire, I'm not overreacting here. Like I take MongoDB, for example, it is valued in 13 billion monies. It is a billionaire industry. And what happened to the maintainer? It needs to be fairly compensated, as well as the communities have it back, right? More than fair. This is why we need to reinvent this model, and this is why it is reinventing itself little by little. The business, which is, well, the ones who have the money and the possibility to contribute it back, I like to understand that this new model of open source, they are trying to hold accountable and understand they are reflecting upon how historically damages has been done, both people-wise, oppressive people-wise, but also sustainable-wise. And this is a way to do it. It is actually true, like this new model will save the world. No, unfortunately not. And we do also have historical accountability to say how much and very many gossips around, how much misogyny, how much oppression, how much unethical things has happened. But it is a model, right? And it's up to us what to do with this model. This is where the open source program office comes. It is a kind of a way, organic way, where the business are being held and accountable for all of this while contributing back to the community. And we have like a happier place somehow. What does it's open source, right? It is this place inside of the companies where we nurture, we guide, and we align all of the open source methodologies and strategies within the business goals. So you get the both sides. You have the business and you say, oh, this is what you need. Oh, look at the open source this methodology. And if you do this, you can happily live together. This is not that easy. And this is why the business needs this healthy relationship, which is so complex. And this thing that I called complex is so thin and complex that even companies like Red Hat, the Linux people, they also have an OSPO. It's dealing with compliance, which means licenses and all of this process with communication with clarity, such as complex for a project. Imagine that for a company that you need lots of projects to do your own business and your software. And keeping this ecosystem healthy, sustainable, it is a tough job. I like this image because I think it is a bit abstract, but this image, I like it very much. The image from Linux Foundation, where you said, oh, we consume that much, we need to give back that much as well. And in between, there's all these complexities going on. Are the communities, are the code, are the reliability, are the fundings needed, are the standards? Yeah, it is a lot of things. So this is the main road, right? But yeah, why? Why actually does an open source program office do in the daily basis? And I quote, reviewing and overseeing open source license compliance, mitigating potential legal risks around license, guiding the organization to collaborate with the open source communities, foster an open source culture inside of the organization, creating a solid communication strategy, encouraging organizations to adopt open source tools, educating organizations, associate on the benefits and the best practices of open source, facilitate relationships with projects and foundations. It is a lot of work. Because such as just putting the code inside of the repository would not make it shareable in a good open source project. Just being there and saying, yeah, we're actually helping you will not actually make this a good relation, a healthy relationship, right? Again, it's needed this technical communication, understanding of the philosophy and the company goals all together. Yeah, but with that much in the table, do you have even a way to measure that? We do. And this is where the chaos metrics come. Wrong. Chaos. It's not actually chaos. It's a kind of complex intersectional efforts to make all of this craziness going on in complexity together, make it more healthy, understandable, and transparent. So the people that actually have the power to make the decision, they have interesting and transferable metrics and can understand the thing. And when we say about metrics, and this is where it's very interesting and where diversity and equity comes from, is because those metrics, they're much about the contribution, what, when, and who. And that means having a clear understanding of how can act to improve diversity, not only on the participation, but also in governance and leadership. And this is fundamental to change the tech industry. It also means to be attentive to very small details, from how the documentation can onboard and accommodate different people. And also, is the project really ready to have different leaderships? And this is what those metrics are about. It needs to take care of the business side. Oh, what am I gonna get from this? Because I need to keep a company up. And also the community thing, because if I'm contributing, I need to get something back from me personally and the community. That's why OSPOs is a very powerful place to promote both diversity, inclusion, and equity. Open source CD is a very powerful seed to transform this place. And we can be very optimistic, right? Because in open source, you can contribute and they don't see where the contribution comes from. But the sad truth is that we're not that much. If we think about it statistically, and the archetype of white males, they are still so dominant that the diversity part, that it's not that, means 4.5%. Yeah, 4.5% is too little. We cannot achieve diversity equity without actually participating on that. This is why I'm here to talk about the importance to be part and be an active change of this tech revolution much needed. Me, I am Paloma. I am representing the open source program office from South Labs together with my leads, Christian Brumman and Diego Molina, fabulous human beings. And we're super open to receive your doubts or your comments, or if you also would like to open your own program, open source program office. Thank you so much for watching this.
That was glorious. Must say.
OBS saved me from the recording. So hard.
Anne-Marie is.
Yeah, thank you very much, Paloma, for this very interesting talk. It was really inspiring. And yeah, really nice sound in the background. I was one question, like if you say that also businesses should contribute more to open source, and you also said like maybe, I mean, and we know also that not all companies are really culturally diverse. So how can they ensure that what they publish is really culturally diverse? And what they put open source? Are there some mechanisms? Can you, maybe you've thought about this already?
So not totally sure if I totally understand exactly what you're talking about, because there's these two efforts and they go together, right? One thing is to is the philosophy of open source, and when they meet, like what company call like a DAIS or diversity, equity, sustainability, when you have those powerful forces saying there's something wrong in the business today, how can you make that change? Then you have like this push for those changes. And one of the things is holding accountable of the amount of quantity of open source things we consume and saying, yo, we need to get back to the community, and we do that. And the other thing is saying, yeah, but how we are doing that is also fundamental, because it's not just pushing the same or doing a donation, like a capitalist philanthropy. It's not just about that. Of course, it is important, but it's just not about that. It's making sure that all of these changes are coming from representation, different kind of representations, and those representations are having the voice in the decisions, so in those leaderships as well. Does it make sense with your question?
Yeah, so like, of course, the code is influenced by who's writing the code and then also how it's published. So it's, yeah, so it should definitely start in our minds and also in the leadership minds to become more diverse.
Definitely, but the cool part about the open source, and that's why it's we need to. I mean, it's so hard. Like I was asking in my head, and I was looking for studies that says why there's such a significant amount of people contribute, of women, but to be honest, not white male contributing to open source, and I don't. Life is hard, right? Like if you put everything you have to deal with and take care in life, like, and I still need to make space for open source. It's so hard. So one of the ways what the open source programs offer to do is trying to make sure you have paid time within the working hours to contribute back. And why is that important? Because if the industry is totally reliant on open source and you make sure your employees are helping, and you are, because when you're a contributor, you're an individual contributor, you're representing yourself, you are changing things. And yeah, so I severely defend that we should find this way and fight for this time to contribute more. And of course, we grow so much when we're doing this contribution.
And are there more tendencies that also companies or businesses give their employees the chance to contribute more? Do you see this?
I highly hope so. It is a lot of efforts for discussing strategies, and that's why we have to be ready to say, see, if I'm happy and I have, like, I don't know, my Friday off to contribute, I will put more, I will be happier, and I will bring more innovation on the table. And making your managers or the people who have, the ones who have the power to decisions to understand this is not so hard. It does. You probably need to have a talk, put the proposal, have a period to say, let's try it on, let's see what happens. But it's not impossible, and it is a much growing number of industries and and people doing this. OSPOs are growing a lot, and this is one of the main actions that it is important to reinforce.
Thank you.
You're so
Thank
welcome.
you, Paloma, for your talk.
Thank you all.
Moving on to the next talk, we will see Paloma later, and let's see how this works.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Geza, and today I want to talk about how I want to stop being a perfectionist by writing more imperfect code more often. I have been working as a software developer for over 3 years now, and I really like writing code and building things. But I felt for quite some time that I don't write as much code as I would like in my own time. And I've also realized that the reason why I haven't been writing as much code as I would like is that I'm a perfectionist. Now, it's already been quite some time ago that I read about a software developer called Jennifer DeWalt. She had studied fine arts and she was working in a day job as a bartender when she then decided to become a software developer. So she quit her job and she set herself the challenge to write one app every day for 180 days in a row. back then when I read this, I was shocked by the idea because it didn't sound like anything that I would ever do. And what I thought was just like, these apps, they can't be very good because, I mean, she only had one day to write them. But I was actually also deeply fascinated by the idea, and it just has stuck with me ever since. And recently I went and read the original post that Jennifer wrote in 2016. And what I found interesting in her post in particular was what she said about deadlines, because she said that because she had to ship one application every day, she had a deadline to meet every day. And that deadline actually helped her not to get hung up on little things. And it also gave her a sense of winning when she met the deadline each day. And this reference to deadlines actually reminded me of how much I myself need deadlines to get things done. And this is well illustrated by a look at the activity graph of my private GitHub, which until quite recently looked like this. So you can see I didn't really write much code in my own time. And the only times that I actually wrote some code in my free time was when I had some kind of deadline, when I needed to produce code for some proof of concept that I needed for a workshop or a talk. Now, this picture would make sense if I didn't like writing code and building things, but I've always thought of myself as someone who really likes writing code and building things. So I then also ponder like, why is it then? Why am I not writing so much code? Am I just not clever enough? Am I not organized enough to write more code? But recently I've come to realize that this fundamental problem that I have is something else. It's that I'm a perfectionist. I just don't want to put things out there that others might think then, just potentially take apart and criticize. And I don't want to see that what I've built isn't perfect and face the reality that my skills aren't up to the mark yet, where the mark are actually just my very own standards. And the only thing that for a long time has made me throw these concerns overboard was when there were these kinds of deadlines for which I had to produce a working piece of software. Now, when I realized this, I realized that I need a better way to keep my perfectionism in check, because if I didn't find a way to keep it in check, then I would never make the progress I want to make and become the developer I want to become. So I realized that I need to develop a healthier mindset towards writing code, one of iterative improvement. So I've therefore then decided to write more imperfect code more often, and to also show it to others more often to receive feedback and improve. Now, at the same time, recently, I've done a bit of reading on learning and skills acquisition because I thought I could get some useful insights for myself in there. And a lot of literature on skills acquisition says that mastering a skill depends mostly on engaging in the right sort of practice over a sufficiently long period of time. Because authors of studies on skills acquisition have found that people who have gotten really good at something have somehow managed to break down what they wanted to learn and what they needed to be able to master a field or an activity into clear goals or skill levels. And then they've devised exercises, or a teacher has helped them devise exercises that allowed them to regularly practice these sub-skills in a focused way and get feedback. So Anders Ericsson, who's actually written a book on this subject, has called this putting a bunch of baby steps together to reach a longer term goal. And in another place in his books, he nicely sums up the key elements that you need to take care of when it comes to getting really good at something, when he says you need to get outside your comfort zone, but do it in a focused way with clear goals, a plan for reaching those goals, and a way to monitor your progress. And then you also need to figure out a way to maintain your motivation. And when you go and read Jennifer DeWolf's blog article, it turns actually out that when she built her 180 apps in 180 days, she just intuitively chose a way to learn skills she wanted, just in a way that really meets these criteria of purposeful practice very well. Right, so before I now go over and explain a little bit more detail what my own plan is and how it can support me in reaching my learning goals and tackling my problem with perfectionism, I'd like to quickly explain what I want to learn and how perfectionism is in the way. And it turns out that actually my current learning goals are, just when it comes to building software, are heavily influenced by the nature of my current job as a software consultant. So my current learning goals center around skills I need to do a good job at my job. And it's all about me becoming a generalist or enough of a generalist to choose and use available technologies wisely to build applications with them that deliver value. And I also need to get just very good at understanding and integrating technologies in a sensible way, and at structuring code well and developing software incrementally. Right, so what could I do to learn these things better, and how is perfectionism in the way of it? I've always found, or I've always been fond of the idea of having personal programming projects, not just as a thing that's really fun, but also as an additional opportunity for learning skills that I want to gain to get better at my day job. And I also thought, just if I build my own applications, I can build what I want, and that will keep me engaged in the long run. So it could just really give me the regular kind of practice that's important for mastery. Now, my own perfectionism has led to several problems when starting out on my personal projects. First of all, I will just easily get hung up on details, and then I won't start because I feel I just don't have the perfect plan yet, and I don't have the perfect knowledge yet to do the project. Or else I would maybe start on the project, but then stop early during the execution because I felt the code I wrote was very badly structured and I just couldn't bear looking at it anymore. And then thirdly, I in general don't really dare to request external help or feedback with my projects because I fear that it will be bad and not useful and just demotivate me. Right, so what could I do? What could be my plan to get better at the things I want to master in a sustainable way? Because obviously I won't quit my job, but because I'm just learning so much all the time on my day job. And on the other hand, I also don't want to spend all my time in front of my computer, no matter how much I love programming. So instead, I started out with the following plan. I want to build one web application per month and deploy it on just to the cloud, to production, which is actually a Kubernetes cluster that I operate at home. And by the way, this cluster was actually one of the few personal projects that I ever brought into a working state because I gave a talk about it a while ago. Right, so like this, I'll have one deadline per month, and then I've set myself a few additional guidelines that are supposed to just help me keep my perfectionism in check. I will choose well-defined problem statements and simple tech stacks for the applications. For example, just use, when in doubt, Vanilla.js and React for front end, and something like Flask or Spring Boot as a back end framework. And then also I will automate everything from the start, both my local development setup and the path to production, including tests. That will mean I'll always be able to deploy changes that I make to the code to production on the push of a button. And this is good because it means fast feedback, but it also means that I can come back to the project and get set up and back into the context quickly if I take a break. When building the application and automating everything along the way, I want to adopt the way of developing software described in the book, Growing Object-Oriented Software Guided by Tests. That book recommends that we build a walking skeleton of the application first. And that's a minimal slice of the application that already includes all components of it and that can be already deployed to production or to a production-like environment. Just doesn't have to do anything inside it yet, can just be showing a landing page that displays some values from a database. And then once I have the skeleton app, I will then grow the functionality of the application incrementally with the help of tests. So for each new feature, I will write an overarching end-to-end test. And then while working on making it pass, I go and add lots of unit and integration tests. And this approach has a number of benefits, but the main benefit that I see for myself is that I will focus on working incrementally in small steps while not losing touch with the bigger picture. So the guiding principle in this walking skeleton approach is that you always have the application in a working state at any moment, but each of its components doesn't have to be perfect yet or have a full set of features yet. And then finally, I want to try and adhere to one very useful principle in the software industry, which is make it work, then make it right, and then make it better. Where better can just mean faster, or also just it can mean introducing abstractions to improve the internal structure of the code. So for any technical decision that comes up or any problem that I need to solve, I will just go with the simplest solution first. And my only minimal requirement is that it should be safe enough so that I don't get hacked immediately and my cluster gets made part of some botnet. Yeah, so that's how I'm currently trying to learn how to build better software, how to become a better programmer. I, in a sense, want to turn my personal programming projects into opportunities for purposeful practice, and in this way, at the same time, make sure that I don't abandon them early. I want to get into the habit of building the projects incrementally and then improving them iteratively. And I feel that I'm on a good way of becoming less perfectionist about writing code, but will it work? Well, we'll know when we'll all meet again next year at International Women's Day 2022, when I've either built 12 new apps or haven't. But in any case, I'll be able to report on how it went. And finally, if you have any ideas or suggestions for me, any kind of feedback, please get in touch. I would really appreciate that. You can find me on the PyLadies Slack or just on Twitter under my Twitter handle. Thank you very much.
Yeah, it just took 3 hours for me to figure out how this app works. Getting better at it. So we have a question from Nicoletta. You mentioned fear of feedback. Did you manage to deal with this, and how? Collaboration is such a great part of coding, but a lot of people miss out on it because of fear of feedback. Muted. No, you are muted.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel the same. I think I've always done quite badly. I think in handling feedback, even I think this was the first time I watched myself back on video, because I just in general have always been very bad with handling feedback, and this includes then of course feedback on my own code, and yeah. How do I manage to deal with this? I've just now, I don't know. I think it's just like being like standing there and saying it's been enough. I've let myself lose enough opportunities to learn and grow by just not wanting to get ask for feedback. Yeah, and I guess this is basically just, on the one hand, publicly saying I now want to receive feedback, and also I will just, I guess, actively by just having stuff that I can show to other people, make sure that I actually then go and show it to other people, and also by having this challenge of wanting to build the apps. I think this will basically also, I think, drive me, because there is bound to be blockers when building things, and they are, I guess, then a good motivation then to just reach out to other people who I know are good at certain topics, and just show them my code.
Is that your GitHub handle?
That's my GitHub handle, indeed.
Yeah.
Yeah, please feel free to check it out. And
yeah. Okay. Good. There's more. So there was the GitHub handle. There was one question, and then fantastic. And when we are doing PyLadies meetup workshops, you didn't seem to be afraid of feedback, but so maybe the stakes are too high sometimes when it's at work.
That's a good question. I mean, I guess PyLadies meetups. I think I'm just looking for these kinds of situations, and that's why I like PyLadies so much, where I just somehow, some part of my brain, there's just a switch that doesn't then somehow, the feedback, oh, attention, this is feedback now, alarm just doesn't get triggered anymore. And that's why I like PyLadies so much, because the first, like, originally when I thought I'd join PyLadies, I just thought I want to be hacking with other cool people, and then then I learned that it's also a lot about mentorship and helping each other grow, and so that's a really great thing about PyLadies.
And Avar is asking if you make your personal projects private.
Well, yeah, sure. That's I guess that's the plan. Yeah, that it's all public, and which somehow raises the bar in terms of I don't want to be like showing code that is very insecure or very imperformant, but I guess just also still publishing more code so that I can at all get feedback for it.
Okay. Cool. So we've changed the schedule by swapping the last two items, and now we have the last talk, and then we have a panel with discussion. And thank you, Geza. I mean, she's not going away, she's going to be here. But so let's see how this works. Remove. Hello, everybody. I'm closing this event, and I guess I hope 3 times is a charm for also video recordings. And I would like to thank all the speakers who have contributed to this event by choosing to challenge and submitting their talks and their time. You are all amazing. This was an unprecedented event. Jenna from ThoughtWorks reached out to me to ask if PyLadies Hamburg is doing another event this year, another International Women's Day event, and I advertised that I'm doing this in the PyLadies network, and Lorena from Chicago reached out to say she would also want to be collaborating on this. And then we thought, well, with 2 time zones, why not add 3 and then just be all around the globe? So we basically reached out to Georgie, and here we are, 3 of us. And let's see. So this whole event was organized in 3 months with a lot of work being done, like, of course, via Slack. And it was quite an amazing adventure to be working on like 3 completely disjoint time zones. It kind of was, the Slack channel was quite active at any given time. 2 people were awake, and you would wake up the next day and see that a lot of the work was done and wonder like, wow, that's amazing. So yeah, that was an unprecedented situation. And as everything was done like in 1 month and on a really short notice, the same, we asked for our speakers to record and prepare everything in a short time window. So we are very grateful for that. My talk today is about the PSF Diversity and Inclusion Work Group. I guess some of you have heard of it, or if not, you've definitely heard about the Python Software Foundation, maybe. Let's see. So a little bit about me. I am Teresa Jovciu. I use the pronouns she, her. I'm coaching data science at Bootcamp Neue Fische. I'm also co-organizer of the PyLadies Hamburg chapter, vice chair for the Python Software Verband, and I am part of the Diversity and Inclusion work group at the PSF, and I do artsy stuff under the label Tiap Yap. And so as I was saying, the PSF Diversity and Inclusion work group is fairly new. We've started it in December 2020. And basically there are, if you go on the Python Software Foundation website, you will see that in general there are a lot of people involved in creating and maintaining and growing the Python language that we use, and also the community around it. So it's not something that, you know, just happens on its own. It is a little bit of work. And one of the aims of the diversity and inclusion work group is to further this one mission from the PSF that is to support and facilitate the growth of a diverse and international community of Python programmers. So for this reason, the work group tried to be at least so as much as possible diverse, and I created this nice dashboard. You can check it out. It's online, where you see, so we are 20 people. We are covering all the regions, so we're representing all the regions and continents of the globe except Antarctica. Here is a big shout out to Marlene Mangami from Zimbabwe, who is also the chair of this work group and one of the driving forces behind the group. If you go on this website, you will see that you can see where the people are from, and zoom in on the city and really look at the geography of it. That's as much as you can do with a map. And yeah, so as I was saying, it's a volunteering group, so sometimes people everybody volunteers as much as they can, and in the way that they can. So far, one of the things I would like to mention is that Iqbal Abdullah from Japan, he made this survey at the end of last year, beginning of this year, where he tried to see try to ask people in the community about, their stand about Python and the PSF. And as you can see, 75% of the people he asked use Python, and then also 80% know about the Python Software Foundation, but only 50% knew what the board of directors of Python Software Foundation does, and also only like 33% have voted in the PSF board. But there's quite a strong desire for having more geodiversity in the PSF board. And the next steps the next part that I will focus in the talk is, for example, if you want to be on the PSF board, what do you have to do, right? But before we get there, the first question I guess we are all asking, and a lot of people are asking, whenever you have organizations like this, why should you care about the PSF, right? Why should you care about any kind of organization like this that is not a company that you work for? And basically, yeah, so what's in it for me? So from my perspective, I think some of the things that I see about the PSF is that they are behind running conferences, Python conferences. They're also facilitating communities like the PyLadies one. So for example, they're paying for our meetup subscriptions and our Slack stuff. And then there's the code of conduct and the work group behind it, where you can, when you're a small Python community who cannot afford to have their own code of conduct work group, sometimes people reach out to the PSF to be part of under the guidance of the Python PSF user group and PSF code of conduct work group. And then there's also the grants, right? So for example, if you run a Python event dealing with education, diversity, or community, you can apply for a financial grant, right? So how did this work for me so far? So basically, I was part of the group starting the PyLadies Hamburg chapter. We started in July 2018. Since then, we've done 33 events. This would be the 34th one. We've received so far 3 grants. So basically 100% acceptance rate. So I applied only 3 times. I don't know if you've participated, but we had the IoT workshop in Hamburg and also the Pycon India IoT workshop in Berlin, where we needed a lot of Raspberry Pis for the people building weather stations for their flats. And also the Python Pizza Hamburg conference received funding from the PSF last year. And so basically, yeah. The next question that I have is, why am I volunteering at all? Like, I'm volunteering in 3 parts of the PSF. So I guess I'm the PyLadies Hamburg chapter, the Code of Conduct work group and the Diversity and Inclusion work group. And I think this quote from Brett Cannon, who's a Python core developer, he said it at the PyCon US in 2014. I don't know about the rest of you. I came here for the language, but I stayed for the community, and I think that sums it up. What I can say about volunteering is that it's not an instant return on investment thing that you can calculate and predict your return value beforehand. It's more like a way of life. If you volunteer, it's like a long game. It's at some point it can work out, of course. Yeah. So one of the things that came out of volunteering, basically, which would not be possible without my engagement in the past, would be this event today. So this event came from the interactions on the PyLadies network, and it wouldn't. So it was kind of organic, but it was like, I would say that if I would have planned from the outside, I would just join a network and say, now, hey, I want to do this. I don't think people would really like join me, right? Like, who are you? So you need to build this to be part of the community, and then things happen. So yeah, so my last question to you is, are you a person who's volunteering their time and you're still not a member of the PSF? Yeah, so I guess the first step in order for your volunteering, at least to be like, to put two and two together, would be to be part of the PSF. You can join as a member to go on the website, and then at some point you may decide that you're volunteering enough and a lot, and you should apply then for the PSF board, where you just submit with a statement about all the work that you've been doing for the community and Python as a language. And I always like closing my talks with the current book that I'm reading. So I would like to say, so the one that I'm reading now is called The City We Became by N.K. Jemisin. This is a book where diversity, mansplaining, being a person of color are tackled in an urban fantasy setup in New York. I can totally recommend all her books. Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter. And again, thank you very much for attending this event and celebrating International Women's Days with us. And don't forget to that's a cliffhanger. I don't know what to follow up with the Chicago event later today. Yes. So I think it's only in like, it's what, 10? In 4 hours, Chicago is starting. So, okay. And so next we have the last panel. There you go. And wait. Ha! The magic has happened. Okay, so we are almost at the end. We have the last panel, and then we can still do a little bit of Q&A with everybody, or a chat. So, Geza. I think we have only Berlin here. Geza, you're also in Berlin, right?
Yeah, true.
Yeah, there we go. Problem solved. Okay, then I have to let you deal with this. No, okay. Yeah, if anybody has questions, please post on YouTube. And I think we still have some questions from the previous panel that were not tackled. I don't know if you want to ask those. Otherwise, if you have already something, Geza, prepared? All of a sudden.
Sure. No. What was the question left unsolved?
Oh, there were questions for Geza. Great. what were the biggest challenges that you were facing regarding community work or by fighting for diversity?
I guess one challenge that would come to my mind just needn't be the most pressing one, but having people who say, but why do you need, again, and this came up actually in the first panel discussion, why do you need just communities that have written on them something about ladies or women? Like, are you basically then not segregating people, or why does this need be, or are you not discriminating now everyone else who doesn't feel they can come or so? And I think, arguing for this is then kind of something that you then have to somehow think of how you argue for it. Where for me the answer, but I would like the others to pitch in here, because I'm sure I'm the most enlightened person to talk about it. But I've just always thought that indeed, and I think that's how in Hamburg we handled it. Like, we just said everyone can come. It's just that we want to be a safe space, and if you feel like you can contribute to this safe space and not like make it go, not break it, then you're free to come. And and also then I've just always thought that this is just the fantastic thing about PyLadies, because it's really just this meetup where I always feel it's a very welcoming atmosphere. We can ask all the questions we want, and that just makes people do fantastic things that many of them wouldn't go and teach a workshop about, or say, or just raise a discussion about. And that just always has reminded me that it's important to argue then, like, for these kinds of groups and meetups.
This is very tricky. In Berlin, in the PyLadies Berlin, we did have this discussion. It's bad that Jessica is not here, because we actually had a great talk about this. Because it is welcoming, but there's this point that Sumya brought a lot on her talk, right? Like, there's an issue we need to address, and this is why there's those focus. And if you say, if you do not put also this kind of restrictions, you will have more of the same all the time. And it is this very delicate balance between being open enough, but giving this kind of preference for the ones that usually do not speak. It's like a, do you know that we have this thing in mind that you need to put yourself, and we also usually say that, you need to be able to speak and say, but some people are just introverted, or they just don't like it. And how do you respect these differences and make sure everyone has a vote on the table, but doesn't mean that they need to be the same? And I don't know, Sumya, because I was very inspired for what you were actually talking about, the focus groups.
Yeah, I have something to say about the diversity challenge that we face, right, in IT, for instance. So because I'm not like a huge part of PyLadies, but I'm there in most of the communities. So I'm also always looking for like communities to join. So if you look at my Slack, there are like 20 communities I'm in. So I think I like that there are a lot of communities, but it's hard to get people into the communities without the communities working together. So that is another challenge that I saw, that even though, like, in Android developer group, for instance, we have a big, huge group. So say, for instance, every month we meet and there are 40 people and there'll be 2 women among the whole 40 people. So we don't have representation, even though I know people in the community personally that they are Android developers. They don't come for the meetups. They're not there. They do not want to represent. They do not want to be role models. They already are juggling with a lot of stuff. So I think women have to be, like, at least be present. That is the minimal, I would say, is important. Because if we don't stick together, lift each other, even at workplaces, right? Like, if there are developers, then just talk to other developers and bring them into the communities. Nobody takes this upon themselves as a job that I need to bring more women into the community. So unless I go screaming and yelling and be like, we need more women, we need women speakers, there is nobody who really thinks it's important. So to make sure that we say that to the right people, it's important to have more women, it's important to bring more women, or even from other marginalized group, right? If you see all white kind of a company, you have to make sure that there are other people in the company. If they're just men on the board, you have to ask people, why are they I just ask randomly the founders that, oh, why are they not female executives in this company? Just, ask a question, right? It's so simple. They can, you don't want to put them at spot because you genuinely are curious about this, not because, you want to put people at spot. So I just think people need to ask questions, and good questions in the correct places. So when there are meetings, when there is, town hall meetings, just being there and asking a good question, maybe you might not get a good answer, but it makes sure, like I had one instance that I can just share if there is time. So yeah, like in one of the companies, they were like in a meeting, we had like 80 people in the whole meeting. It was a town hall meeting. And I asked the founder at the end, they were talking about diversity and things like that. Like, what actions have you taken to bring more female executives so they can take action to improve diversity, right? And they didn't have an answer for this. And it was really shocking, that they haven't even thought about this to answer when they're talking on this topic, right? They don't have any action items on their agenda. So then there were like 30 women writing to me on Slack saying, this was such a great question. I'm so inspired, I'm going to ask more. So it's just going to snowball if you just make an effort, a tiny effort, I think.
And I also feel like it's the big difference is that I feel like why there's the need for PyLadies or other similar groups is that this is actually things like what Eva said, for example, about leading and role models in leading, seeing other people take the stage and do a talk or a workshop, or do one yourself because you feel safe. This is just something that's really a big step out of your comfort zone for many people. And I feel it's just not, because I've also seen suggestions such as, should we have only female software, only women's software teams or something? And then people are like, no, I don't want to be in all women's software team. But I think that's not so much of a problem, because if I'm with the same team every day, then I feel safe usually in that team, and it's just like everyone knows me, but I don't have to prove myself. But all these things where you're really way outside your comfort zone because you're trying to lead, or you're trying to be talking, like public speaking, it's just important to have a forum for that. I feel that is that makes as many people as possible just take this first step out of their comfort zone, so that there at some point then can be more people in the just.
But I also think, on the other hand, it shouldn't just be on the shoulders of women and other minorities to put the work for this, right? So I think I was talking to a friend of mine at Microsoft Research, and she was saying that what happened there was, when they decided to do diversity some years ago, it was also the men who had to attend diversity conferences, right? It was like, because we have a lot of women spending their career time on attending conferences for diversity, but it's also the men that have to attend diversity conferences to, experience, to be part of the dialogue, to understand what's going on, to not be like, oh, I didn't know, what a surprise, it was, oh, I never know, why you didn't you ever tell me, right? So nobody ever told me. So it's also, I think, the job of the people that are in the majority to educate themselves. So I would say,
agree on that. Otherwise, it's just more weight on the shoulder. Like, it's like it's blaming the victim in a more, right, like a too big example, but like it's the same example when you hear about when you read about more heavy cases, like rape, for example. For me it's an extreme example. But when you think about blaming the victim, is actually that when you say, oh, it's your fault, you didn't speak but like I didn't speak because I didn't have a chance to speak. I didn't have the space, and this activity has come together, right? You need to do your part. You need to show up. You need to. That's why, like, you won't increase the numbers if you're not there. But at the same time, you cannot just expect for you to just adapt to the world and this world not doing anything back to actually accept you. There's this really beautiful, I won't remember actually the quote, but I think a lot about disability as well. And it's like you're saying, oh, that was such a good one. It's like, it doesn't matter if you can invite me for the party, but I need to be invited to dance.
Oh yeah,
So
I
if you
know.
just say
It's a quote by Werner Myers, and she says diversity is being invited to the party, and inclusion is being asked to dance. So yeah. Yeah, I had that quote in my talk today, but I skipped some of the slides. But yeah, I totally agree with that. And like how Teresa said, that allyship is super important, right? When actually, other way around, when people come to my community or come to me and say, oh, is this like a focus group for women? I'm like, no, feel free to come and mentor women, right? I'm including more people to come and be there. I invite everyone to come and be there to understand problems. And when we do fishbowl discussions, when we talk about challenges people are facing from marginalized group by women, they come out and speak to us freely, because I have women mentors who they're familiar with, and they don't feel this inhibition when there are men also, or from anyone who's coming and attending. They don't feel like I shouldn't be saying this because there are other guys. They feel more safe because there are women, there's there are mentors they know. So I think it's a great way to teach other people who are not aware of diversity, because communities have this powerful thing about talking about diversity and teaching about diversity. So informing people is like, first you can say, oh, we are not aware, then please come join us, right? So that's why I call also Coder B more like, generic, so they don't start asking me questions in a way. So yeah.
Okay, I have maybe one last question for. I think we've all organized events and well, for also all different communities, but especially for PyLadies or communities that are meant for empowering women and people from underrepresented groups. How often did you hear the statement of, well, but this is not diverse if you do not invite the others? Like,
I haven't counted.
Not. I mean, usually I haven't really faced like a strong opposition, for sure. I think people are aware, and to a certain extent, because I keep posting things that people get curious on the Slack channels. And then I feel like I get good feedback, because I have so many people from different leadership backgrounds come and listen to my talks about diversity, especially, right? So community managers, students, to everyone. So usually people are very curious, honestly, I feel. So we just need more people to talk about it, to, like spread the word. I feel that. I don't see any strong opposition, for sure.
I don't remember of facing a very strong opposition. Would often, at least once in a while, I have the question like, yeah, but why ladies? And that was a good question for us that helped us also rethink ourselves. And I think that's why also PyLadies is more defining as a more diverse instead of women, strongly putting women. But also, I think much has been achieved historically. I'm not here that long to say historically, but I think there was a lot of effort saying to push women, and now we kind of reach, right? We have some improvement there, and now it's supposed to be organic. We expect this kind of movement to be organic, and I think this is what's happening now as well. Say, oh, okay, we see women now. What's missing? who has been left behind that we need to give our hands and bring it up to. Yeah, so I think it's reformulating. And I think PyLadies is a concours because it's really, I super relate with your talk, Teresa, when you say I do not even code in Python. I basically, I'm basically using JavaScript, but I love this community. I do some things just to stay sharp, but the community
What I
is
did,
so good.
I made for the talk, the dashboard is in Plotly and Dash, which is, I guess, JavaScript wrapped in Python. So it's, yeah. Okay. So I'm thinking we let everybody else who's still left on the stream in have, I don't know, until we are super tired. So I'm gonna add, see who's still awake here. Paula, let's see when she's coming, her camera back on. And yeah, so, and there you go. JavaScript and Python are wonderful together. Yes, I can't actually wait to, in my future life, be good at D3JS. That is my only dream, actually. Oh, it's a lot of work. Yeah, so there's one question from Carol. There was one. Maybe we can use that. What would you want to teach to other PyLadies? Who wants to go first?
I can tell what I learn a lot, and now I try to change a lot my perspective, and I try to replicate it all the time, which is this amazing support. And I think this event is actually an icon for that. I mean, it's so wonderful to say, oh, we're 3 time zones. It's so powerful. And yeah, big shout out to Meili and Jessica that, whoa, when I just got into the organization, they were the organizers. And it was just simple things, the smaller things, like you giving a talk and they just looking at you and say, you're ready. That changes everything. It's having someone there who believes in you. It doesn't matter how absurd you're doing, like you can be here, but is that your wish? I will support you. And this is very powerful.
Before you go on with the answers, Carol added a level of complexity to the question. If you had 10 minutes.
Okay, then I would say something, it's a bit piggybacking off of what Geza actually mentioned, and it really struck a chord with me, and I didn't realize this is how I felt until she uttered the words exactly. Yeah, so there you go, Geza, for an inspirational moment. But I would say that not losing that opportunity to learn and to grow and to share that motivation with other women. That's what I would say is important to teach other PyLadies.
I could also add merge conflicts. Somehow everybody is so scared about merge conflicts. I have all sorts of ways to deal with merge conflicts, from deleting the whole repository and doing it all over again, you know, I mean, like, or really going in the latest breed of merge conflicts that I've seen are the ones in Jupyter notebooks that you have to actually deal with them in VS Code by opening them as text and then actually dealing with the merge conflict by hand and then hope that it worked. So yeah, so I can say nobody should be scared of merge conflicts. If that achievement is like unlocked, then I'm done, I think. But I'm not sure.
So I have something. Oh, sorry,
please,
go ahead.
Please.
Okay, just So I was just saying, like pair programming for me, I think that is super important because I learned a lot by just pairing with people, and I used to bug people to come pair with me. When I was a junior, I was just like, people would be annoyed that I was asking them to pair with me. Basically you have to at least try, right? So initially I was not asking anyone, but once I realized I'm not doing that well just by myself, learning like constantly, so I said, how do I make this learning better? So two things I did. One is code reviews. Secondly, pair programming. Code reviews are the best way to actually learn to code by just ask people why they wrote certain piece of code and make them explain to you. And secondly, like if you are stuck with something, don't be stuck, right? Just shout out and ask for help, and ask somebody who's an expert and who's nice to come like 10 minutes, spend time with you, just articulate the problem, and then there, voila, you're already set, right? So just don't be scared to like ask people for help. People are always more than willing to help. So that would be my advice. Just code reviews and pair programming are game changers.
Yes, I wanted to add on a more technical note as well. Yes, I would teach someone how to write a test. I think the kind of knowledge that you get from writing a test, right, is the try and failure, is that you instantly modularize and document your code because you're like, oh, I need to test this specific thing that does this. Deploying it and getting actions and getting an X and getting a plus. So, the feeling of failing and trying, all that, like it's just by writing one single test. And even when it comes to contributing to other projects, you need to be able to be more comfortable with, these failures. So then, you share your code and you become part of this community and you really represent what you are and what you do. And I think it all starts from a test.
All right, maybe bring the topic again back. Oops.
Sorry. I just wanted to really briefly piggyback on what Nicoletta said with testing, and then like once you have your tests and you're safe, like now go play around and refactor, because like you can do whatever you want.
I love test and I love refactoring, but yeah, completely going somewhere else from basically technical excellence to again back to people, because that's something I've been thinking about a lot recently, and I've never been good at anything like people, just leadership or making people just helping each other grow or seeing how our team performs well. But I think it's something that many people in this room are very good at, basically just creating a very nice atmosphere in meetups. And that's what I would then just I wouldn't even need 10 minutes to teach another PyLady. I would just say go to the next PyLadies meetup and observe really closely how the people who are hosting this meetup are just managing to create a really great atmosphere and just bring the best out of other people and just make them do things and just talk in front of other people for the first time, and then just something really, really great comes out and they are sharing something that's really, really beneficial for everyone. I would tell them that.
I think I would also add to this. So basically what I would teach others is that they should teach others, because even if you think that you really understand a certain function or package, you always can learn something new if you try to explain it to someone else. Yeah. And the PyLadies meetups and also the conferences are a very good chance to explain it to someone else. So yeah, be brave and give a talk and join the community.
I have to say that I love, I've noticed what PyLadies Berlin is doing with this non-coding superpowers. I find that very fascinating. So last talk was amazing on bullet journaling. Again, nothing to do with coding, but I was like, I should start this bullet. I always plan on organizing my life, always in the plan phase. But so I really, really love this non-coding superpowers that are highlighted in the PyLadies Berlin.
You're so right, Teresa. I was surprised after that talk. I really reflected and I spent all day Saturday and Sunday reorganizing my life. Believe it. On by the time Sunday afternoon ended, I had actually collapsed 10 different apps into one, and I've started using ClickUp. And believe me, I have my personal blog now in there. I have my Jira board in there. I have my mind maps. I have my Pomodors to keep me on track. I have a timer when I'm doing specific tasks. All of it is in ClickUp. And this was inspired completely by the software, non-technical coding. And everything in one spot. So if you're looking for some ultimate one tool to rule them all, I would suggest you try ClickUp, by the way. And I don't work for them. Yeah.
They should be paying you anyway.
Yeah, I was really impressed how many different apps I had to solve problems. Yeah, and this just getting organized helps to keep me on track with my personal projects and, my to-do list. All of it is in one place. And so this is important when it comes to non-technical skills, I think. Being organized.
Is it spelled like this? ClickUp?
Yep, that's it.
That's it.
I'll put it, Carol asked me to put it in the link.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm
I
more like...
also... Oh, go ahead.
Sorry. I was happy at the talk that she said that for her personal project she does pen and paper, because I really enjoy pen and paper note taking. Although I have Procreate, another app that I can also recommend. For talks I use it now, but for I really like the pen and paper. So I'm basically collecting nice notebooks. Collecting.
So I just wanted to say another idea for PyLadies, something to implement, is that private mentorship, right? Like, so just if you have time, like to just shout out on the Slack channel, like, are you struggling with something? Just talk to me, have a Calendly link, and just ask people to talk to you and spend like half an hour solving, maybe trying to help them with their challenges. So most of the time when I talk to like aspirants or even programmers in their initial stages, they have this huge challenge of navigating all these emotions that are going on. Like there's this thing about like things that are pulling them down when they want to achieve more. And it's all emotional. It's mostly not that they cannot write code or, it's nothing that's skill based. It's basically they don't know how to navigate this emotion of like debugging, for instance, right? They get bogged down by, I can't solve this challenge, and why am I not so smart? Or they compare themselves. So I think lots of challenges or questions I face is that, not related to code. Nothing related to code. So when I talk to people about private mentorship, they block time to talk about their workplaces, how they're being treated or what they're being said, people how they talk them down or condescending way. They don't get mentorship at work, so they want to find other ways. So a lot of other challenges like career changes, or they don't have support and are single parents. So everything around outside and not related to tech at all. Like, so this is what I think is more important. If you just show them that little of empathy and reassurance that, hey, listen, I'm in tech for 10 years. You can do this. If I can do this, you can do this. Just, they need to hear this, right? And that's so empowering. I felt my role models, my colleagues did this to me. And however, it worked out really well. And many times when I felt like I should quit the development because I'm not good enough, it was always somebody's kind words that made me come back, and community feeling that made me come back. So even though at that moment, I felt like, no, this is it. I'm done. This career is over. It's always like someone's kind words or reassurance that brought me back. So yeah, I just feel like more of these kind of private things, as in like private mentorships, or even talks which are empowering. I think if you are a senior or a coach speaker, I would love to like see more of this.
Definitely, this is where we start. Why we started the non-condy superpowers. It was like, first, it was it's a very gentle way for you just to express anything and not feel pressure to be the badass who really know the answers for the technical part. But it is very good to have this balance, because we need it. The technical part is hard. So having when we start the events, especially the in-person events, it was like this very gentle. People were coming in, having some drinks, eating something, and I was like, oh, just slow down, and then boom, machine learning.
Yeah, I find, to be honest, I'm not really excited about giving code talks, like giving talks where I have code on my slides or I talk about coding, unless so. And I always have this. I talked to Ellen from Berlin about it, because I always felt like I basically ended up asking organizers of conference if is it okay if I submit at a tech conference a non-tech talk, because it's like yeah sure. But I had friends from my friend circle who said, oh yeah, only women talk about topics like that, this being other women saying that. So in the end, it ended up like I'm kind of censoring myself on this one, but in a sense, I cannot really get motivated about talking about tech, like just having code slides, when I know that at work you have way more problems that are way beyond code, right? So why aren't people talking about that more? Except us. So again, but yeah, so I think code to arms. Everybody should give more non-tech talks at tech conferences. And also the job interview should focus a bit more on the non-tech part of the job. But I don't know how long it will take for that to change.
I have a question to everyone regarding this job interviews, right? So I feel like, there is a big problem of people being biased, having implicit biases in their heads about women being in tech or programming. And when they look at you and they don't see that, you're not a white man, they don't immediately trust your capability of writing code, right? So even though you might have like a huge background of writing code and you're really good at it, it's really hard to remove that kind of bias from the interview processes. Maybe they don't even get back to you, or things like that. So do you think like recruitment, especially like frontline recruiters, what do you see any changes in the way they are tackling this problem of implicit biases? Mostly because I feel like most of the people are not getting chances because of these biases in people's head already. And like, if there are any solutions, for instance, have you seen anything like this, solutions that would bring about this kind of change?
Yes. Not have only men in the interview process. Like, it's that easy. You should have a diverse interview process, which is not the case, right? And you'll see. So teams that are created by diverse hiring committees end up being diverse teams, and teams that are not end up being same kind of people team, whatever those kind of people are. And that is like, even if you have companies where there's one team that is a diverse team, like, how many people know the story of like that one team of the diverse team, where like one hiring manager is the diverse part of like different than other hiring managers. So yeah, So as I
But
said,
it's
the
also
same
true
way,
that women also have this bias, right?
Yeah.
Like we ourselves have this bias. I would say
And
that nobody's excluded from
No.
the biases.
No.
So
no, and
it's
that's why
really
you
hard
should
unless we
check
make,
it.
yeah,
Yeah.
true. I think so too.
One tip that I had when I work with Ellie Flores, which is also a very participant in PyLadies, and she's very amazing. And one tip that she gave me, and I think it follows both for growing in a career path in engineering, but also for hiring, is having clear metrics. We cannot avoid this bias. We cannot avoid. The best we can do is try to be conscious about it and change it throughout our life. But we're deep into it. We're community leaders, and even then, basically daily, I like a palm face to myself for something that I didn't realize I was doing that is absolutely prejudice, coming from a very historical, it will take a long time to change it. But when you have a clear metrics, that's avoiding subjectivity, that helps a lot. You can, for example, I'm not sure metrics for hiring, but like for engineering path, when you say, and I'm an intern, right? I'm in the beginning of my career, and what I was like, oh yeah, what do you expect from me? Like, what do you expect from an intern? And what I heard was like, I expected to learn. That's a very subjective how can you measure how much I learn every day? I learn with my cat. Will you be okay if I tell you that I spend 6 months learning how I communicate with my cat? Is that the learning? Or and I think for hiring goes that as well. When you say, yeah, you create these tools to help you bypass this, knowing in advance that you will be biased, wanting or not.
Yeah. I've been sorry.
No, it's
I've been
okay.
like hiring manager, so I've done it, and I just had like I saw sometimes a CV and I was like, I don't feel my decision is objective at the moment, and then I'm like, I won't judge this CV. So I'm like, and I know exactly, like, first I cannot judge people from countries that I've never been to, or I don't know, there's some words that are triggering me. So, and I've delegated this. I actually had open discussions about it. I said, like, I feel like I'm biased about this one. I don't know. I mean, except the one case when somebody applied and they had actively built public surveillance software with AI, and were putting that as one of the projects they have worked on, and they were proud of it. And I was like, I don't know about that either. Like, I guess our moral compass doesn't align. So, but I also escalated this CV. I was like, I don't know. It's not my company, right? So I don't, but yeah. So, I wanted to come back to, no, Nicoletta wanted to say something. You wanted to say something. No, it's gone. Odette said, why should it be a problem if only women do it? Oh, sorry, I'm not gonna. Why should it be a problem if only women do it? I feel that as women look too much down on ourselves, on skills that are so important to function as a human. We are not robots. Robots, though. And yeah. So my take on this one is, well, I guess it's maybe normal still in 2021. We're just like, I don't know. I asked today at work, when did women in Germany start voting? It was like somewhere in the 50s. It's just like, what, 60 to 70 years ago. So, but there is one way to overcome this. Is ask other women, hey, do you think, is this demeaning if I talk? Is this like a bad thing? And then let other people cheer you up and say, no, do it. It's good. I want to hear about it, It's important. And maybe that can change your mind about your perception of some topics that you might be inspired to talk about, but feel like the judgment of the world is too harsh. So yeah, that's my take. Maybe somebody else has another workaround. It's a workaround.
So I just have this one thing that it, like in this book, Invisible Women, right? I wanted to mention this also in my talk, that it's such a amazing book that if you haven't read it, and everybody should read it. This is what I feel like it's the best book I've read till date. So like data is empowering, right? Just to know stuff is so much already like going to make you aware to be conscious. So ever since I read that book, I can just challenge so many design flaws around me, because this book talks about how non-inclusive designs are as compared to women, right? So as in like by default, they are made for men. And everything that is niche, like if it's a women's mask, if it's a women's table, if it's a women's something, then it's made for women. Otherwise, they don't really consider women into design. And this is true at workplaces, everywhere, right? Cars, or that's why women are dying and women are not getting equal pay. That brings me to this point which I wanted to talk about, that gender equality, like pay gap, right? I saw that last year on Twitter, there were a lot of people sharing this about pay gap. Like they were making the salaries public, because most people are hushing people around this concept because they don't want women to know that you're not paid well, right? So yeah, not many people really want to disclose their salaries or even discuss their salaries. So this one, what do you think about this topic, about knowing people you're on the same level as a developer? If you see you're a junior, mid-level, senior, would you like to know everybody's paid the same amount, or would you rather not know if they're paid more than you or not?
Yeah, at least in Germany, the salary topic is just freshly opened out of the taboo zone. It's like, I think it used to be illegal, and now it's illegal to be illegal, but still people are not comfortable talking about it because they've been raised on it being illegal. And it supports, so it's like 20% gender pay gap in Germany, very nice. Yeah, I come from Romania and we have only 5 there.
That's great to hear. That's amazing.
Yeah, I won't go in politics now. So.
I'm totally 100% in favor of transparency. I mean, everything you have something close, I think is an issue. And yeah, I understand you can have kind of a negotiable range, but I think for the little thing that I can find out, that this gap is actually huge. And that comes also from the lack of transparency in the metrics. When you say, oh yeah, but yeah, and that it's also used a lot of, yeah, that's used a lot to, I think I'm forgetting the word. Yeah, 200% with the transparency. And I think we should talk more about that in numbers.
Yeah.
So I just felt like I cut off someone.
Who? No.
Sorry. Again, I cut off.
Go. I wanted to mention that the Noun project, which is basically, you can get really cool icons. They have published their strategy for salary negotiations, how to remove the bias out of it. It's a really nice article. Can share it here. We have a question.
I can start. I'll say amazing.
For me, it is empowering.
Recommitted.
I'm motivated in so many ways. From all these comments, I can't even start to list them all.
I feel connected. I feel connected to people I didn't even know existed before, and they're not even in my country or continent. So definitely connected.
I feel very inspired, I have to say. Thank you very much for all the talk.
And thank you very much for organizing the event.
I think
I'm a bit tired, but I still have to go with the dog out.
You're brave. Maybe that's the word, brave.
Brave, yeah. It's Hamburg. Nothing happens outside at night. You don't need to be brave. You can go out in the dark. But I'm very happy it worked out. And also to have Carol as a online
cheerleader,
like cheerleader and orchestra director, it's awesome. So
yeah, I really loved her comments.
I just have to say that I'm not huge part of PyLadies a lot, but I really love coming back to PyLadies. Like I'm usually connected to PyLadies Berlin, but I feel so like I belong in this community. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
You're muted.
Yeah. I think unless somebody else wants to say anything anymore, I think stuff is recorded. StreamYard apparently records everything. Carol says you do belong, so yeah, we all belong, I think. Yep. So I think it's been an amazing event, and yeah, as I said, I basically posted it on the PyLady Slack. It was just, you are part of making history. So, so don't forget that. This is just the first.
I really want to give you a big thanks. I watched most of the talks in Bangkok today, and it was amazing. It was like we're super connected, super in the ideas, in the wishes, how we feel. So thank you so much for putting up such a great event.
And they had people who wrote down the subtitles for all the talks. And I was like, damn, I was just like, I thought, yeah, I tried on one talk. Thank you, Carol. I tried on one talk to do it. And then it took me like 10 minutes for 1 minute of subtitles. And I was like, next time I start a bit earlier with this part. But
yeah. Is Yuru nicely asking us to volunteer as translators next time? No.
It's not translator, it was like English to English, right? I was like, yeah. But you can't trust the automatic the subtitles makers for, accents. We all have accents, right? Except Abare. Well, Abare also has an accent. She's
Wait, we do? What? No.
What? No.
But you can also ask speakers to do this themselves. You know that, right? So.
Yeah. But this was everything organized in 1 month.
Wow.
Right.
Amazing.
So it's not like I think everybody gave as much as they could, and that's the best thing that can come out of it. And then nobody is accounting for extra time work did where and being spiteful about it. And that's because we are a better community than that, I think. So yeah.
Yeah, thank you all
Yeah.
who are behind the scenes and doing so much work, you know, to put this all together. Great. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and PyLady Slack, right? So reach out also. I mean, if you want to have chats about leadership or whatnot, mentorship, and I think there was some ideas about mentorship today. Maybe we pick up on that, and I think if we make it 1 more hour, we are longer than Bangkok. But I guess. No, I'm kidding. Okay, so if you do not go to bed yet, in 3 hours the Chicago stream is starting. So get some coffee, And thank you all. And I will wait. Let me do this thing because we have this thing. We have this.